Good evening, everyone. We're talking lettering at the moment. And I have to say that I was just lettering a page. It was last year. And look, Comic Crack is here. Let's see if I can go to the. Good evening, my Drive at 5 comic book zoo crew. All right. I actually did a page. Last year, Rick Parker contacted me and a few other people. I think it was last summer, even like summer of 2021, that he wanted to try and put a comic together of people who worked at Marvel doing like a one-page comic about what their experience at Marvel was like, or some anecdote or something. And I said, sure, I'd do it. And I decided to make my page on the story I've told on here before about me pulling a piece of art, well, getting a piece of artwork out of John Romita's garbage can. I don't know if you've ever heard that one, Wilson.
As a matter of fact, yes, I
Okay.
was either I watched the show or I was on the show where you
Well, that was
mentioned it.
that was I was doing a comic on that, which was actually kind of hard
Mhm.
because I had to draw a likeness kind of 1992 John Romita.
Mhm.
And I just found that intimidating because everybody who's there knows what John Romita looks like. If I get that wrong, if I get that not close enough to right, not even wrong, but I had to try to get it close. So it took me a while to figure out how I was going to draw him.
Mhm.
And then I ended up doing the whole strip. I did the only thing I didn't do was the writing, even though I had I had my idea what I was going to say. Hi kids, I didn't do the actual script. So for some reason, like I said, I got all the drawing done. It was pen, and what was funny was I couldn't even do it as a comic page. I did it as individual drawings, and then scanned all the individual drawings in and put them on the comics page. So they're all. Matter of fact, where are they? They're somewhere around here. I couldn't. Are they in this pile? So I was just there. We are. There's my John Romita.
Okay.
So I did them all as this, like an individual. There's John again.
Mm.
So I did them all on individual pages. So finally, like a year later, this year, I was like, you know what? I'm finally going to letter and script that. And the first thing I had to do was, I don't know where my layout went of this. So it was like putting a puzzle together. I'm like, how did I do? Luckily, I kind of based it on a 9-panel grid. So I was like, okay, I think I know where all the panels go. And I ended up for the script, what I did was in my blog 3 or 4 years ago, I wrote the story, as text, as a blog post. So I said, I'm just going to my blog post and cannibalizing that. So that's what I did. I went to my blog post. I just cut and paste the relevant parts where I was telling the story in words, not pictures. And then, lettered. I don't even have a good font to work with. I used a default Adobe font. I forget what the name of it is, but it's just okay. It's one of the comic book fonts that's in the Adobe font library. I'm like, I have to find a good comic book font and buy it because I've actually for 2 of my comics I've been using a Dave Sharp font called Helvetica, Hell with 2 L's, which is a roughed up Helvetica font. He just took it and like hand drew it and it looks like a roughed up Helvetica. I've been using that for like 10 years. But Adobe is going to stop using type 1 fonts in like January. So that font's going to be no good for me anymore. So I'm going to find it just drive me nuts. But anyway, here I am lettering this in Adobe, and there's just too many words. So I just had to edit. I just like, cutting that out, cutting that out, cutting that out, and I cut the script in half by the time I was finished with it. But that's what that's what you have to do when you write a comic book. So not enough room for words, so you don't put them in. Find other
Yeah.
words that work better.
It's strange because I've worked for so many companies, or just about all the companies at some point or another.
Mm-hmm.
Even companies that there are plenty of companies that don't even exist anymore.
Right.
And one of the strangest things I ever had to letter was a bunch of comic books where the writer put so much information in the script that only the penciler was going to read, the editor was going to read, and the letter was going to read. But there was not much dialogue. So you
Isn't
would
that how
just
Alan Moore writes?
I don't know. I never saw one of his actual scripts. You know what? I did see an early script years ago where he would do what's happening in every panel
Yeah.
and write out all the information, which is fine. That's one of those things where he's doing what his job is as a writer,
Yep.
describing every panel, every page,
Yeah.
and where things are going to go.
What's
But
Paulo sharing with us here?
So this is a page from a graphic novel by Edgar Pierre Jacobs, the U-Ray, and this guy, although he was the writer artist,
That's a lot of text boxes.
yeah, he was unforgiving to himself.
What were you saying there, Wilson? How are you ending that?
okay, so that's one way to write, but he balanced what's going on the page with the whatever's going to go into the dialogue, the lettering.
Right.
Now, this other writer had just gave information, but more in the sense of here is what character A is thinking about, but not
Oh.
actually writing it on the page. It's not appearing in the page. So it was basically here's the script information. There's characters fighting, and it's all reactionary dialogue. Ouch, oof, oof, kind of a thing. But he would put, her face should look like this because she's thinking about a way to defeat her, but not saying those in the actual words in the balloons. So you would go through the page, and there's maybe 3 balloons per page. Easiest job I ever had to do. But I had to go through this whole script that wasn't really a script. It was just a scene. And then the information I'm being given, there's not enough going on. If the reader got to read what was happening on this page the way he wrote it, the book would have been more interesting.
I wonder if that guy was a TV or movie writer.
I
43?
don't know. 1949, 1943. I guess
Is that
that's
for the
asking for the year.
Yeah, the U-Ray was first published in 1943.
Okay, that was the
Okay.
piece Paulo showed. Yeah, because
Yeah.
they
Although
maybe
it only came out as an album in 1967, and by that time, the artist had completely rewritten and relettered the whole graphic novel.
Yeah, 1967. That may be all stuff, Wilson, that you tell an actor what's going through their mind as they're acting the scene out. But in comics, an artist doesn't need to know that.
No, not at all. So yeah, thinking back on it, it does sound like it. It's
Yeah.
amazing because I've seen many scripts from comics where it came from a writer that did television, and they do not think in panels.
Yeah.
And so I had a friend of mine who was drawing books, and the problem was it was the scripts were coming in from a TV writer, and she had to explain to him this character cannot do these things in one panel at the same time.
Right.
You can't have them jumping over the couch and then jumping on a motorcycle right after that in the same panel. And there's, again, there's so many things because each medium has its own rules.
Right. Jacobs, by the way, was the greatest tailor and the only one to understand pipe smoking. Mind the comics' love of fashion. But here's 1967. Just remembered me. There's a new comic I want to track down. Well, a new old comic, I should say, that I want to track down. That I'm in a group, one of Arlen Schumer's groups, Silver Age Comics on Facebook, and somebody posted a comic cover I've never seen. And to tie in with the weeks we've been talking about is a Millie the Model cover. Millie the Model Annuals 1967, and I'll share my screen in a second. But what's cool about it is, especially since this summer I've been reading about Andy Warhol in the Factory. I read 2 books on Andy Warhol in the Factory in the 60s. First time I've been reading about that. But in this Millie the Model cover, Stan Kohlberg takes a lot of the current artists at the time and works them into this op art Millie the Model cover. So let me share that with you. Where is it? Share screen. And I just found it. I'm like, I'm gonna have to track this down now. There it is. There's not only the Millie the Model cover, but someone tracked down where the references were from. Like that is I forget who it says. It says it's a a poster of Toulouse-Lautrec by who's that 50s graphic, that 60s graphic, Peter Max. So right over there, and you can see she's blending right in with the art there. Up there is a mod ball that right down in there you can see. This one is in the corner. There's W.C. Fields in the background. Here's Basie and Getz down in that bottom corner. Let me zoom in on it a little. There we go. There's the mod ball in the room there. But I like how she blends right in with the poster behind. I just have never seen this cover before, and I thought it was really cool.
It's a well done cover.
Yeah, it really is.
It is so well done. I almost want to say I've seen it before, but I don't really think I have.
Yeah, I have never seen it before. And then someone else pointed out that there was an Archie cover similar to it. Let me see if I can find it here. Which one is the Archie cover? There we go. Oh, hold on. Let me get the one with. There we go. Let me hit tab.
Oh, wow.
There's an Archie cover similar to it, where you can see there's who was that, Tesla in there, the poster right next to the poster. Over here, yeah, in the background there is another one. There's let me zoom in on that now. I don't think it's quite as well done, but it's still pretty well done. There's the Warhol Campbell soup can. Stan Getz, Joe Mooney poster. I don't know what year this Archie one came out. Someone put this in the comments of the other one, but I was looking up I was looking up how where I could buy this one. There, let's zoom in close. The Rainbow Room, Toulouse-Lautrec over there, the Mamas and the Papas. Oh, look, her boots even blend in.
Mm-hmm.
Count Basie and Stan Getz. There they are over there.
That play poster for Hair? No.
Oh yeah, Hair right there too. I just thought that was really. I was looking. You can get them from anywhere from $20 to $400.
And now that it's been on this show, the prices are just going to shoot right up.
Skyrocket.
That is really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I was like, especially since I was just reading about that time period.
Now, I got 2 stories about Warhol, and I just wanted to ask, in what you've been reading about, did you read anything about when he drew Supergirl?
Who is this?
Andy Warhol.
Oh, when he drew Supergirls?
Yeah.
Well, I do know that he, at the same time Lichtenstein was developing his style, where he took from comic book panels, Andy Warhol was developing his style, where I think he drew a Superman. He made a painting out of a Superman drawing and a few other things. But then he saw Lichtenstein's stuff and went, he's got this covered. And that was like 1961, 62, where he went, he's got this covered. No need for me to do it. And he moved on to other stuff.
Now, I never tracked it down, but while I was doing art returns, I don't remember who, but there was someone telling the story that he actually drew a Supergirl comic book for DC.
Oh, I did not know that. That was not mentioned.
And because the story was told to me was because years later, apparently somebody showed up to the DC office with a suitcase handcuffed to his arm with pages to try to see if DC would be interested in buying them back, because now Warhol was famous. Okay. So I don't know if he did these pages before he was, the big name artist type of thing. But I never really got to investigate if he actually ever had comic books published at all, let alone these Supergirl pages. So it was
if he did, that would have been 66, because he was actually a successful illustrator in New York in the 50s. Mm-hmm. So before he became a pop art, fine art, matter of fact, he was originally not embraced by the fine art community at all because he was an illustrator.
Right.
So who knows what he did as an illustrator.
And then my second story happens to be, I went to the High School of Art and Design, so I had many teachers there. And every once in a while, his name would pop up. Pop up. I didn't mean that to be the pun that it is. And that my teacher, who was teaching illustration, since advertisement was my first love, that's what I was basically learning in school, talked about Andy Warhol. And he was like, he had, again, this is a teacher who was around as a illustrator in the 60s and 70s and what have you. And this is back in the 80s, so he was already established artist. He talked about Warhol, and it's like he had friends who were absolutely upset with Warhol because they were the ones that designed the Brillo package and the Campbell soup can in the first place.
Right.
And he's just redrawing them.
Yep.
And making money off of that. So it was like it was just really interesting on how there are a group of artists that hates another group of artists.
I always wondered who those people were who designed the Campbells, because we all, there's a website dedicated to Lichtenstein, Deconstructing Lichtenstein, I think is the name of it, where it shows all of the panels that Lichtenstein took from.
Right.
And it also, and of course, we know lots of comic book artists who, weren't happy that he took their panels. But I always wondered if the Campbell soup guy and the Brillo guy, because Roy Lichtenstein's basic idea was wrong, in that his and the same as Andy Warhol's, where he was taking something, sort of a pop culture, something, I don't know what you call it, the detritus of pop culture, just something that pop culture has, that's like temporary in pop culture, made by anonymous artists, and he was, changing it into something permanent and fine arts. Except when it comes to comic books, that was wrong, because those people weren't anonymous, and there's lots of fans of them who have made them permanent over the years. So it's like what Lichtenstein attempted to do, to me, was a failure, in terms of he didn't take something that was anonymous and disposable and make it into something new, because it turned out that stuff wasn't anonymous and disposable. Everybody still collects it and knows who all the guys who did it. But Warhol his like Campbell soup cans actually was anonymous. It's like nobody knows the artists who did the Campbell soup cans and the except for your teacher. He's the
Right.
one. But I always thought they would be annoyed too.
Yeah, and from what I hear, they were,
Yeah.
and that's the that's the tragedy in the sense of advertising and in comics, because you have so many people coming from advertising going into comics, and is it the reason why artwork did not get returned? Because everyone was used to the fact that once you turn in the artwork, you were done, and then eventually someone wanted the artwork because where is the original artwork to the Brillo, the mock-ups and stuff like
Yeah.
that? Because that would
But
have been tossed
but
away.
in illustration, you got your artwork returned.
Did you? Okay, I wasn't sure if, because I always heard the fable that if you worked in advertising, that artwork belonged to the company, and once you turn it in, you're never going to see it again.
The problem with that, as was pointed out by me, but pointed out to me that I had never heard before about 10 years ago, is that was 100% not true because as a as a tax preparer pointed out, if that's true, where's the sales tax? If a
Mhm.
company is actually buying artwork from an artist, they owe sales tax on that artwork. Where is it?
Right.
If a company has not filed sales tax, then they have no, if they're only buying the rights, then there's no sales tax on buying the rights. If they're buying the physical artwork, there's sales tax on it. And unless they have a paper trail of them paying sales tax, which no comic book company does because they didn't,
Right.
then they don't own it. So that was always one of the things about that argument that always, ended. I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. It's like, company, of course, companies didn't want to hear that because they didn't pay sales. They didn't want to owe 20 years of back sales tax on art. So I think that's part of what originally got them to return the artwork. But in reading about, what's his name? The illustrator I bought the book on last year that I was talking about, the girls, the Petty Girls. He actually, and he was one of the illustrators who made sure he got his art returned. George Petty back in the 30s, and he did. The name pinup wasn't around, but he did pinup art. The word pinup wasn't invented until World War II, but that's what he did with his Petty Girls. And he not only made sure he got his art returned, he only sold the first right to print it. So the magazines, Esquire, I think was his. Esquire had just started they just started and they used George Petty artwork, and they could only print his stuff once, which of course is all they really needed. So there were and that was kind of standard, I think, through, or at least if you were a big illustrator, they didn't get your painting, and illustrators were rock stars in the beginning part of the 20th century, so they didn't, when their paintings were worth a lot of money, so publishers didn't get the paintings for them. It was only with comics, for whatever reason, but they did first it was studios. I wonder where the artwork went then, like in the
Yeah.
Eisner Iger studio.
Right. I don't know, because the books that I've read that talk about the studios, I mean, I still have to finish reading the Joe Simon book that I have, My Life in Comics,
Right, I know that one.
and I'm only halfway into the book, so
But I
I
know
don't
that
know if there's anything there about.
they
Mhm.
packaged stuff for the publishers. Well, what does that mean? Did they give the original art to the publishers and then never get it back? Because package to me makes me think they did the production on it, but maybe not.
Well, production back then, from what I understood, they had to send the physical artwork
Yeah, yeah,
out somewhere.
right.
So where
Who
did
did it
it
get
come back?
returned to?
Right. The Marvel ones, we know it was returned, because I found those envelopes, and it was returned directly to Stan in the
Yeah,
Empire State Building address. But then again, Marvel was packaging the stuff themselves and sending
right.
it out. So I haven't read any accounts of how the comic books went from the studio. Did it go to the publisher and then go to the printers?
I imagine it
And
has
then,
to go to the publisher because they got to look it over. But
yeah,
did
there's
they
been
care?
photographs where they might have had to look at it to make sure everything that they bought is in there. They would have
Yeah,
had to. They would have had to at least traffic it
yeah,
to make sure they're getting what they're getting. And who knows if the people that were packaging the books, were they doing the advertisements, or were they just packaging the story? So here's a
Mhm.
complete story, and then the publisher takes it from there. I don't know. Do we
Yeah.
know anyone even from that time period of how
Yeah, I don't
things were
think
put
anyone's left
together?
alive.
I don't think they are, and I don't know if they even went into a lot of these retelling of stories. I don't think they ever bothered to retell how production was,
Yeah,
what
I
the
don't. That's
packaging was
something
like.
most people aren't interested in. So
Yeah, so I
it's like
don't
if you
know.
were and did you even package the whole comic or did you package individual stories? Like
I don't
let's
know. Yeah,
that's
I
interesting.
maybe they package individual stories. They produce up to a certain point, turned it in, and then the publishers took it from there.
I would maybe the publisher says we got a 68 page comic, we need 68 pages of story.
Mhm. And
And
the first comics, they didn't have ads, so there would be no need to.
that's right, there's no ads in that Detective 27 that I
Mhm.
just got the facsimile of, except for the back cover.
Right.
What about the
Yes.
inside back cover?
The inside back cover, I don't remember. I'd have to look at it.
It may have some humor filler. It
Right.
was normal at the time.
The inside front cover had no ad on it. It was only I only because we were talking about that printing press. Oh, a dirt bike just went by.
I don't know. I mean, could Bob Kane do the production of a comic book?
No.
He couldn't even do a comic book.
I don't think
So
Bob Kane. I don't think he actually packaged anything. I think he worked directly for DC.
No, in 1939, yeah, but in 1939, DC were making their own comics. They
Right.
weren't being packaged. The All American stuff, Max Gaines stuff, like Green Lantern, was made at All American. They just put the DC logo. They just put the
Okay.
DC logo on it. Those were effectively not DC comics with the DC logo on it, but Action and Detective were made at DC by
Okay.
Whitney Ellsworth.
Yeah.
okay, so
So
is Eisner Studios, um,
Eisner were creating for quality,
Simon and Kirby. Those are
right?
the only two that I'm aware of that books do exist. Whether
Lou
or not
Fine. Did Lou Fine have a studio or did he work at somewhere? I'm trying to remember.
I don't
There was a
recall.
third studio I can't remember the name of that I know definitely.
Harry H. Esler.
That's Harry Chesler, right? He definitely had a studio.
Okay.
That's the other. So there's those three. Lou Fine. Did Lou Fine work with at Eisner's studio?
I
He
think
was
so.
the star of one of the studios. Maybe it was Chesler's. I remember reading
Possible.
that.
I don't know enough of the golden age, basically.
Yeah, and now that gets me
about
wondering,
that.
when did Lloyd Jacket disappear?
Who was that?
Lloyd Jacket, the Funny Zinc.
Oh, I don't know.
That I do not know.
Because Everett and Burgos worked for Jacket. Then so that Simon and Kirby did not work for Jacket. They were working for Fox. Then they moved to Timely.
And what's her name? The guy DC was stolen from, Wheeler.
Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson.
Malcolm?
Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson. From what I know, New Comics, which became New Fun and Adventure, was made by Lloyd Jacket.
His Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson's granddaughter has a blog where she goes back and looks at her grandfather's comics. And
Yeah, she put out a book about her grandfather last year.
Oh, I didn't realize it was out. Oh, I'll have to look at that one.
Who's this? Because I want to look that up as well.
Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson, right?
Yeah.
He was the guy who originally owned DC Comics, who got into a little bit of debt and thought his partners were bailing him out, but they were really taking DC Comics from him. So there were some shady dealings going on. As there have been in comics for a long time.
Since the beginning, apparently, our
Yeah.
wholesome industry.
Lots of shady dealings. Well, let me show you one of the. I only got 4 comics this week. And here's one I pulled off the shelf that I didn't know existed. This is Craig Thompson's Ginseng Roots. Let me show you. He's the guy who did Blankets, like, I don't know, must be 15 years ago now. But this has got some terrific artwork in it. It's like a little bit bigger than digest size. It's like 6x9 size, I think. I don't even know if it's that big. I'll have to measure it. But it's duotone. It's red and black. And it's a $6 comic. I don't know how many pages this is. 32, something like that. Are there page numbers?
That's too small.
But really, I didn't even know. I've only ever seen like Blankets by Craig Thompson. I know he must have been working on something all these. I think this only started, and this is issue 10 I picked up. I was just like, oh, first issue I've seen, issue 10. It was a slow week for me. I'm like, I'll check it out, and I really liked it. It's about him trying to get a comic done. He wants to make a I think, like I said, it's issue 10. I think it's autobiographical in that in his youth in Minnesota, he worked at a ginseng farm, and his mother did too. And Ginseng Roots came out years ago. The actual, because there's no collected edition of it, but I think the first issue came out in like 2019 or something like that. So it's been out for a while. Hey everyone, I'll be in and out tonight. All right.
Sounds cool.
But I really liked issue 10. And in this issue, like I said, he hasn't got anything done on his comic, but he takes a trip to South Korea, to learn about their ginseng industry. And also he's Blankets is pretty big in South Korea. His graphic novel, I don't even know how many years ago that it came out now. It's been a while. So it's about he and his brother being at a South Korean Comic-Con and then touring the ginseng factory and him trying to get ideas for his ginseng comic. But I really liked it, and it was really well done. So then, of course, I looked up the other issues, how much they were. I checked out eBay. I checked out mycomicshop.com, and nobody really had them all. Like I said, it's $6 an issue cover price, so I knew it wasn't going to be cheap for 9 issues. And then I found they actually have them they actually have issues 1 through 9 at the website. Who does this? Uncivilizedbooks.com. They not only have the comics. What has got here? Habibi by Craig Thompson is excellent. Okay, I'll have to check that one out. Like I said, the only thing I've read by him is Blankets, and I don't even own it. I think I borrowed Chris Gerusso's copy. Man, that had to be back when I was at Marvel, so that had to be in the early 2000s. That's how old that is. But they had not only the issues, but they made a slip box for the issues to go in. I was like, oh, that's so cool. But it cost, I think, for the first 10 issues, plus the box, costs $80 plus whatever shipping is. And I was just like, oh, $80. I kind of want to get it, but I've been trying to buy that box set of Hate, which is around $80 to $100, same as this, for like 2 years now. And every time I'm just about to buy that box set of Hate, something happens where I don't have the money for it anymore. So I'm like, do I buy? And I already have all the issues of Hate. So buying the box set will really be double dipping. So that, which is why I always end up buying, a hard drive or whatever else. So I'm like, oh, do I spend $80 on the ginseng root stuff I don't have plus the box set, or I'd buy Hate? I still haven't decided. I don't know. What is I have a few of those as well. It's pretty good so far. The slipcase is tempting for sure. You can get the slipcase on its own for about $20. But like I'd have to buy the first 9. Well, it's 10 issues in the package plus the slipcase. I was just like, oh man, should I get it? Should I do? The old deciding what you're gonna get or not.
Oh yeah, it's always that you're ready to buy it right up to the point that you're going to press that button and it's like, do I really want to get it?
Is this what I really want to get?
I feel like I'm going to find it somewhere else less expensive the moment I press.
I know I'm never going to find ginseng root anywhere else.
Okay. Yeah.
Hate maybe, but I don't think so. Hate is kind of out of print. I can't tell if it's out of print or not, but you can still get it for, $80 to $100. But I can't imagine Hate is going to go out of print. This oversized box set, just because it was one of Fantagraphics' evergreens for a long time. So, have you ever read Hate, Wilson or Paulo?
Nope.
Oh, that is definitely one to read.
I've seen the covers, so the title is familiar, and I think I know what the art style looks like.
Peter Bagge.
Right. Black and white book, I believe.
Yes.
I'm sure I picked up a copy at Hanley's at one point just to try it, and just did not go back to it. But I'm not positive. So many books that come out that I would go to Hanley's every week, pick up what I normally get, and like you mentioned, there are some times where there's nothing there to have everything. Then it's like every time I walked into a comic book shop, I always left with something.
Right.
No matter what, even if I wasn't planning to. When I went there, it's like, oh, they don't have my normal books. It's one of those off weeks. I'm going to pick up something. I'm going to get something to try. And I know I have tons of books that were like one-offs. That it's like I got it, I read it, it didn't hold me, and it's possible that I got copies of Hate somewhere.
Yeah, like Hate not only gets my highest recommendation, but one of my friends once wrote the great American novel of the 20th century has been written, and it's called Hate. And I agree with him that in that, like I said, especially since it's over, there's a beginning and an end to Hate these days. And it takes place kind of in real time. He grows up in it. He starts out as a high schooler and he ends up as a father or whatever. And it really has, even though it's, alternative comics, especially the early issues, are just funny and wacky. It really has a sort of novelish feel to it because it's the story of a person's life. That's what it ends up being. You'll love Habibi. He frames every page with handmade, gorgeous Arabic motifs. Oh, that sounds cool. I'm gonna have to write that. I'll look that up later. Craig Thompson, and also I'm kind of like, I'd love to spend the $80 and get all these issues, but it's like I know they're gonna release it as a $25 graphic novel when it's all done. So it's kind of like and there's only 2 issues left. It's a 12-issue series.
Oh, okay. So that trade paperback may not be that far off.
Yeah. But I'm kind of like, I really do want those issues. I covet them.
Yeah, I'm writing a list. I might even call the whole thing Comics Revisited. And it's like books I probably should have read years ago.
Hate is, like I said, my highest recommendation. It's just, as he said, the people kind of fell off Hate in the late 90s because it wasn't cool anymore. Because in the early 90s, a lot of people called it the official comic of the grunge movement. Because the main character, Buddy Bradley, Originally, it appeared in Peter Bag's comic Neat Stuff. There was a comic called The Bradleys, and it was about Buddy Bradley's family. He Butch, and he had a sister and a mother and father. This family who lived in the New York City suburbs in New Jersey, and it was just this completely dysfunctional family story. And then he stopped doing Neat Stuff and started doing Hate, where Buddy Bradley was now, he was out of high school, so he was probably about 20, and he moved to Seattle. And this came out in like 89, 90, just when the grunge scene was happening in Seattle. So, and there were just these crazy stories about Buddy Bradley being young and in Seattle trying to, make his way in life. And those are the issues that everybody loved because they were insane, Peter Bag, funny, alternative comics. But as the 90s went on, Buddy Bradley got older. He moved back to New Jersey. He got some responsibilities. He had to grow up. Some of the stuff in his past came back to haunt him. He had his own, got married, had his own family, but he was still Buddy Bradley at his core. He was still kind of a screw up. But it's just so well done. It was like I said, it became the great American novel kind of thing, the story of a person's life. So really, really enjoyed that one. If you ever get a chance to read it, go ahead and read it.
Cool.
I think Hate could sell a little bit. If they did a Portuguese edition, it would sell here.
I would think so. It's kind of universal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's specifically an American's life, but it's amusing enough. I mean,
but it would have to be a complete edition.
Yeah.
And it couldn't retail for more than 40 euros.
They have it broken down into Buddy does Seattle, Buddy does New Jersey, and I think there's one that ends it too. I can't remember the name of it, but and there's also a complete edition that's about $25 to $40. But it's one of those. It's one of those 6x9 ones, which is why I never got it because I kind of want it full size. The hardcovers are also oversized, so that's kind of cool. But that's the deluxe edition. But they do have that's one that Fantagraphics could release easily over there. I was Buddy's age. I was reading those and into some of the same music. Legend. Yeah, at the time, that comic was like he said, it was legendary because if you were into grunge in the early 90s, there's a good chance you liked Hate. We should call Comic Crack Buddy from now on. Buddy Buys a Dump. Yeah, that was the last one.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the last one. Buddy Buys a Dump. That was smaller than the other ones too.
Yeah, so there are three complete editions.
Yeah.
1 15, 16 to 30, and the annuals.
Right.
Wow.
So it's Buddy does Seattle, Buddy does New Jersey, and Buddy Buys a Dump.
I could try to sell it like that, especially if I don't put numbers on them.
Right.
Although the first one has to be the red first.
Oh yeah. The first one is the cool one, so that's the one everybody will definitely want to read.
That'll be the new cover text, the cool one.
The cool one. He actually has called it that over. He's like, this is back when everybody used to think Hate was cool. Or he always refers to them to check out the cool issues if that's what you want. That's how Peter Bag always disdainfully refers.
So that's how I would package it. The first one is the cool one. The second book will be called The Next One. And then the third book will be called The Last One. It writes itself.
And I think he literally buys a dump too.
Really?
Yeah. Because in the second one, he stumbles on to being sort of a collectibles dealer.
Okay.
That's what becomes his job. He deals in collectibles. Mm-hmm. The later issues are in the $2 range on mycomicshop.com. The early ones are sold out. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, that is one of the comics when I was, whenever I looked to buy a CGC comic, which I have no CGC comics and no reason to have a CGC comic, a slabbed comic. But every now and then I go, I should get a slabbed comic just as a conversation piece. And one of the ones I always look to see if I can get is Hate #1. Just because, that'd make a nice, but I know, I don't want to pay a premium for a comic I already have.
Right. I own 2 slab books, and
Yeah.
one of them is because, well, I got one just to buy one to own one.
Right, exactly. That's the only reason I would want one.
And the other one I have is a friend of mine gave it to me because he was buying a bunch of stuff at an auction. He saw it and it's like, oh, Wilson likes Spider-Man. I'm going to get him a Spider-Man one. And he was just kind and he bought it for me and he sent it to me. It was like, wasn't expecting. He's like, I got 2 slab Spider-Man books. One is the Spider Saga. The Spider-Man Saga. So it was one of those issues. I don't recall the issue number off the top of my head right now. And the other one is
He's got to remember now.
I'm trying to see if I can see it. I used to have it hanging up behind me, but I don't see it over there. It's a Spider-Man one, but I don't recall what it is off the top of my head right now.
An Amazing Spider-Man issue or something? Or?
No. That's the thing. It's none of like the high title ones. It is basically, back in the 90s, we put Spider-Man's logo on everything. Mm-hmm. So it was one of the Spider-Man miniseries. Whichever one it was one of it'll come to me because I'm almost sure it was a Deadly Foes of Spider-Man. I think it was one of those issues. That's what it was.
That just reminded me another one that I should get slabbed is I actually made 2 logos for Marvel in the late 90s or so. The only time I ever made a logo for them. A Machine Man and a Cable, or no, it wasn't Cable. I can't even remember. I'd have to look. They were for like the 99 annuals.
Well, there was a Cable and Machine Man.
I think I did the Machine Man on that, and there was one other one. I can't remember what it was that I did.
So yeah, they're continuation. They were spin-offs from an X-Men storyline. So it was Cable, Machine Man, and Machine Man Bastion.
I did Bastion and I did Machine Man. Because
Warlock was part of that as well?
No, yeah, they created the M-Tech line out of it. So Machine Man wasn't called Machine Man, it was called something X, not Robot X. But they did a Machine Man comic. They did one with the new Deathlock, which came from a Cable storyline. And I can't remember. And Warlock, which was, I think they were bringing back Doug Ramsey.
Studs Kirby. I have the collected edition of Studs Kirby from the 90s. It's terrific. That was like a 1-page strip that he used to run in East. Some funny stuff. But I ended up doing Machine Man and Bastion just because usually the way logos got made at Marvel was a way I never involved myself in this and never agreed to this because I didn't like that. They'd say, "Oh, we need a new logo for Spider-Man or whatever," and what would happen was they'd have a whole bunch of letterers compete to do the logo. So they'd say, "Oh, we need a new logo for Spider-Man." So they'd send word out to all the letterers. All the letterers would do their pitches for the Spider-Man logo, which involves making a logo. And then Marvel would just pick the one they want and the other ones wouldn't get paid. And I'd be like, no, that's not right.
Nope.
But that's how logos got made. But one day, I almost did the same thing. In 1999, I was sitting around the bullpen, bored to death. and I don't know who the editor was. I can't remember. Well, I was putting together the comics or the covers or something, and he's like, "Oh, we don't have any budget for logos for this. Could you do us a quick logo?" And I was so bored, and I knew I shouldn't. These people get paid for logos. But I was just like so bored. I was like, you know what? I would rather spend my afternoon doing a logo than being bored. And at the time, Michael Golden was the art director. He came over and he was like, "What are you doing?" I told him what I was doing. He's like, "No, that's not right. You're getting paid for those logos." And I was like, he's like, "There's no way I'm letting you do those logos and not get paid for them." And keep in mind, Michael Golden was also, he wouldn't do logos for Marvel because what Marvel paid for a logo, he got paid for a logo sketch in the advertising world. Because Marvel paid like $500 a logo or something like that. And if you were in the advertising world, like I said, as Marvel had all the, if they wanted a letterer to do a logo for, if in the advertising world, if you wanted a logo done, you didn't not pay the logo makers and just say, "Well, you 5 logo makers, give me your best job and I'll pick the one I want." That's not how the advertising world works. You said that logo maker and you say, "I need a logo. Here's $2,000. Give me 4 sketches." And you give them 4 sketches and you pick the one you want, and then it's $5,000 for you to make the logo. Those were 1998 prices. Whenever Michael Golden told me this, why he wasn't doing logos for Marvel. So he actually made sure I got paid for those logos. I was like, "Oh, that's cool."
That is very cool, that he's there looking out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see getting those slabbed. I could
Mm-hmm.
see getting something like that because again, that's part. Not only is it something
Right.
to talk about, but it connects you to the time period, what you created. Because I'm sure, did you ever get the original logo back, or did you do it on a computer back then?
The advertising world is the opposite of comfy. The advertising world is insane. You can get paid well, but they decide they need something and they need it yesterday. And you've got to get it done immediately and give it to them, and then they change like it. You get paid well. Everybody says that. I've never been worked in but I've known people who wanted to escape the advertising world plenty of times because it's all late nights and work you don't want to do, and somebody above you decides this work needs to be done. You have no idea why this work needs to be done, but you do it. You stay up till 3 a.m. and do it. You hand it in the next day and they stick it in a drawer and never use it for anything. And you're like, "Why did I just lose a night's sleep?" So from what I've told from people in advertising, it's very trying work with very little fulfillment in it, but good money if you're one of the good money guys. Like I knew a guy in the early 90s who was a friend of a friend who was the marker comp car guy. And what a comp is it's sort of like a logo sketch in that, but it's a sketch. The first stage is sketches. So you do pencil sketches, and then the art director says, "Oh, I like that one." And the next stage is marker comps. And you do the whole advertisement. You draw it out in marker. So they can pitch that to the client. So it's got to be fairly tight, it's not a finished piece of work, but it's tight and it looks good. And maybe and you get paid, you get paid plenty of money for the comps. I mean, like these advertising guys get paid money. But this one guy what was his name? Mark Bloom, I think was his name. And he was from England. Nice guy. But if you needed a marker comp done of a car, he was the guy who did it. And that's all he did. He did marker comps of cars. So if you had an advertisement with a car, and he had them all in his head, You name a car, he could draw it in marker. Zoom, zoom, zoom. He knew all the lines. He knew exactly how it looked because he was that guy. So, but he didn't do anything else. That was like his niche. And if you're in advertising, you have these niches, and you filled that niche. So, I don't know if it was tough to get comfy in the advertising world. And I think all those marker comp guys, once desktop publishing and digital hit, they're probably all gone. Like our friend Kevin Kobasek, who used to draw Deathlock a bit in the 90s and was Don Daly's assistant editor. He does storyboards a lot for advertising. And he's worked lots of late nights, and it's all digital now. All storyboards used to be on paper. Now they're all on the screen.
I've done a little bit of storyboard work, and yes, it does pay well. I did it only for coloring, so I was helping. I was helping the art director because he had an artist who, some reason, could not do the coloring. I was recommended, and so it's like I could only do coloring. I can't do any art corrections with it because I wasn't, because I'm doing this over someone else's work.
Right.
So it's like I could do some coloring, and because it was not only was it storyboards, it didn't have to be overly detailed, but it had to be to a certain point. And through the whole process, I got paid well, and I'm doing the artwork, but I was email it in, think I'm done, and all of a sudden I get the email bounce back. We need these changes. All right. So I make those changes. Boom. And yeah, you're up to 1 or 2 or 3 in the morning doing these changes, mailing it out, emailing it out, and then what was great was the art director was up while I was up. So it wasn't like I'm doing all the work and he's sleeping too. Or maybe that's the curse that, would you go to sleep so I could go to sleep? But, each art realm has their own rules, and the money's good to a certain extent until it gets to the point where it's like, I can't do this. And I know plenty of storyboard artists who rather do comics and deal with those headaches compared to the headaches that they're getting from,
but the money is for those who don't know what a storyboard is. It's before you shoot something on film, like a TV commercial or even a movie. Star Wars had storyboards to it. Not every movie is storyboarded, but a lot of them are. Most TV commercials are storyboarded. And they're also storyboarded for the pitches, too, where you draw out what's going to happen. Even in the film world, advertising is such good money. Oh, yeah. And what it was, and usually a storyboard was just 3 panels. I think it was 3. Was it 4? 3 or 4. They're, the size of the screen, they're the proportions of the screen. And my wife's corporate podcast editing is the same way. She's constantly being asked to make extra edits late at night, any day of the week. Yeah. George Freeman has done some work for our union as a storyboard artist. Yeah. And the storyboard, my friend Ed has done a lot of he's done his fair share of storyboards, not a ton. He loves them when he can get them, because you get paid by the panel in storyboards, and you get paid $100 to $300 a panel for storyboard. So if you're doing like a 3-panel storyboard, that's $300 to $900 depending on how big an account it is. That is so much more than comics. And storyboard people love comic people because comic people can draw real well and real fast. It's like a lot of you can have there have been storyboard artists who can't draw, in terms of, because storyboards don't have to be finished art. And a lot of times you can see storyboards are like nearly stick figures. You just have to get and sometimes when the directors are storyboarding their own stuff, you can barely tell what's going on. So when they get a comic book artist doing storyboards, they were like, oh, whoa. Because comic book artists can draw from their imaginations really fast and well, which your average storyboard artist really couldn't do. That's why in the 90s, a lot of comic book people were doing storyboards, because it paid so much better.
Yeah. Liefeld tells it in his podcast the first time he you went to some studio and they saw the people doing storyboards, and you get paid to do this.
Yeah, that's how bad they were, right? Yeah, it's crazy. Because like comics are so, but let's at the same time, let's say you're drawing 6 panels on a comic book page, you're getting paid $125 for that page, which would be $1,500 if you were doing storyboards. So that's what it's like. Whoa, I should do some storyboards.
And as we're talking about it, I'm thinking, yeah, I should contact that guy again and say,
Yeah.
hey, what's going on?
Storyboard artist unionized.
Yeah, it's very competitive to get story. Yeah, it is very competitive to get storyboard. Lots of networking. Who yes, that's exactly what it is. I have never seen an advertisement for storyboards for a storyboard artist. The one time I did storyboards is because my friend Ed needed help, and he's gotten storyboards. It's who you know. And I'm sure there's more of them to do in LA these days than New York, but who knows? But yeah, it's like everything else in the world, is who you know. Because to get that kind of work, you got to know people, and they got to trust that. Like as we're telling you here, how much you're up later than you want to be. You have to get the work done real fast. That's not something you just put an advertisement out for. That's something where you're like, can this guy get the job done? He can. Good, hire him. You hire him sight unseen because your buddy told you he could get the job done. That's how it works.
Yep. So I think the last bag
Oh, let's see what's in it.
Of books, and this is a thick one. So
Yeah,
wait
maybe
see,
2 weeks.
This is probably 2 weeks worth of books from whenever I got it.
Let's put you on the solo layout. Can we see so we can see what you got?
Okay. All right. This is.
How many multiples of different covers?
There's quite a few too. I believe this is actually 2 different stores of stuff.
Ah.
All right. So I have a Mighty Mouse black and white cover.
Oh, yeah, that one looks pretty cool.
Yeah, so this is one that I have planned to color itself. The story was atrocious, but this was published in 2017. But that's when this was published. It may not necessarily meant when I put it in the bag.
Oh, okay.
Because I might have went looking for that book, and I happened to find it in a comic book shop. But the regular book that would have been part of the collection to buy, this 2017. So here's
been Kaiju Man. What season is that?
This is season 3.
Wow.
season 3 of Kaiju
Season
Man.
6 ended this year, and that was the end of Kaiju Man. These have been in the bag. These have been in the bag for 5 years. This has been in
that bag for that long.
What book is that?
This was Harlequin.
Oh, okay. She's been doing those. They've been doing those piggyback Harlequin books for a while.
Mm-hmm. Rom Space Knight trade paperback,
which I know I did.
Right? I did read this.
Yeah.
This is the newer stuff. This is the IDW version of Rom.
You mean you read that and then put it back in the bag?
It might have been. I know I started. I read this on the train.
Okay.
So I had taken it because it took me a while because I couldn't find the comic books themselves individually.
Right.
When it first came out. So as I decided, I'll wait for the trade, and I picked it up the trade. So I know I read it. I don't know if I read the whole thing, but I know I started it on the train. I'm almost sure I finished it. Mighty Mouse 3 and Mighty Mouse 4. So the Mighty Mouses are older because I happened to pick them all up at the same time. Marvel Legacy #1, lenticular cover.
Ooh. Bought just for its cover?
Bought just for the cover.
I occasionally get a
tell you what happened
cover.
inside it. A free book called Hydro Robot and the Transformers.
Oh, okay. Hydrobot. Well,
Hydrobot.
Hydrobot. What
And the
does it say
Transformers.
before Hydrobot? Schick or something?
Schick.
Is that like a
Shick.
shaving giveaway?
That's exact. He's a razor.
Ah, he's a razor. Got a head that's a razor.
Okay, so that's neat. So this is kind of like going back to AIM toothpaste doing a
Yeah.
Spider-Man book, stuff like that. That's been done for years. Symbiote Spider-Man Alternate Reality. All Spider-Girl covers. Well, no, not all, but most of the Spider-Women are on there, and then the Spider characters. I think that's Spider-Man UK.
Hold on a second. Tim is here. Howler Mouse says, reading comics on a train. I never rode a train for any great distance. Is this as romanticized as it sounds? No, because he means the
No,
subway.
because this definitely was the subway. My commute from Midtown Manhattan to where I live in the Bronx is about an hour-ish, depending on how the subway is. Out of that hour, 20 minutes of it is waiting for the train to show
Yeah.
up.
So there's nothing romantic about commuting.
Nothing at
It
all.
wasn't it wasn't a train across Europe to get to your vacation destination.
Exactly.
Nothing.
uh,
The Razor
a
Robot book I want to read, rip, and slab all at once, and put a dolphin in it.
and because it is a razor, it can rip itself.
Yeah.
A copy of one of the free Comic Book Day Spider-Man books.
Okay.
Detective Comics 1000. The Mike Lilly cover, signed by Mike Lilly. Amazing Spider-Man number 35. With Dr. Doom on the cover.
Lots of Doombots.
Lots of them. And Dr. Doom is one of my favorites. And Spider-Man 2099 number 1 of the relaunch series.
Right. Which is up to like number 30 now or 40. I can't remember. I just saw someone say
I got to catch up unless I have them all back there. Now, this next set of stuff must have just got put into the bags because I did not buy these at a comic book shop. These are Disney comic books that were put out by a company called Peachtree Playthings.
Oh. Disney princesses. Now, did you
Disney
work on these, or were you given them?
I did not. I actually saw these at a Dollar Tree, of all places.
Oh, okay.
And the concept of buying a comic book for $1 was very attractive. So I picked them up because of that. So I have that one. I have a actual Mickey Mouse one. And then one that is from Toy Story. And it looks like they only made 4 in this particular set. So Toy Story, Mickey Mouse, Frozen, and Disney Princesses. Now, these, I believe, are brand new stories, although the artwork looks a lot like the older comic strips.
Oh, yeah.
So I have to check to see if these are reprints or not. Or are they drawing them in that style? You know what? These are reprints.
Okay.
One of them says originally published in Mickey Mouse Annual 16, UK 1935.
Wow.
Here's if you could see the information.
The UK stories look ridiculous. No wonder the Italian ones are the ones that got popular.
They look very much like comic strips.
Yes, pretty much.
That covers Italian.
So the Toy Story one is definitely, well, according to the cover, new original comic story.
Not from 1935.
Nope, not at all. And the Disney Princesses feature stories. Okay, it just has a list of the princesses. And that's a different format.
Oh, the comic strips, definitely. Yeah, that looks new though.
Yeah, so they're
That's
new.
not from 1935.
Yeah, so it's new comic strips done in that style.
Wow.
So I
Interesting.
happened to get these most likely so I could just resell them at the on my eBay page because it's just they're unique, but they're still collectible comic books in that way. Plus, they were $1.
Right. And that's why you waited 5 years to open that bag, because now they're worth more.
Now they got to be at least worth $2.
Yeah. But that
I'm
leads us
lucky.
into my weird comic of the week, which of course is the latest Cerebus in Hell. I have to show you this bit of Dave Sim nuttery.
I saw
Kurtz
that
versus
cover
Kurtz.
online. Wow.
So not only is this a Harvey Kurtzman war comic parody cover, it's a Steamboat Willie comic parody cover, plus a Joseph Conrad Heart of Darkness parody. And I'm like,
wow.
What in the world made Dave Sim think those three parody elements went together? And like I said, the funny thing is always he puts the print run up here. And the more popular cover, the higher the print run. And the more popular covers usually have a print run of around 2,500. This print run is 1,341. And the whole issue is this weird parody of a and what's funny is just this summer I read the Joseph Conrad novel Heart of Darkness for the first time. And it's a novel from like the late 1800s, first of all, so that's funny too. And the movie Apocalypse Now is loosely based on the novel. You know, Apocalypse Now is from what, the 70s.
Right.
You got all these current stuff. So the whole thing was Steamboat Willie Rat here driving his steamboat, because in the both the movie and the original novel, a guy is bringing the steamboat upriver. In the original novel, it was like into the heart of Africa. I think in the movie it was Vietnam. He was driving the steamboat up to meet this guy who was so the whole thing are these jokes, and there's jokes about Emilio Cruz. I mean, Martin Sheen, his two sons, right? Emilio Estevez and
Charlie Sheen.
Charlie Sheen, because the father was who starred in the movie, and it was just like these weird jokes that, man. And I'm just like, this is the most insane issue yet, but it was amusing. So, and then at the end they had the image from Apocalypse Now of
Marlon Brando. Marlon
Brando
Brando.
with giant Mickey Mouse ears, because it's a Steamboat Willie mashup. Of course, he's got to have giant Mickey Mouse ears. And
Of course.
it's like, what? So this
That
ties
is
into the Disney stuff.
completely wild.
It's just this issue is just madness. 100% madness.
That's
Of course,
amazing.
I liked it.
I only saw an image of you holding it up.
Yeah.
So at a quick glance, I only saw the title. I thought it had to do about something about Harvey Kurtzman.
Just the cover has Kurtzman.
Right.
But the guy's name in the novel is Kurtz. So that's how he tied it in with Harvey Kurtzman.
Amazing.
Okay, so Dave Sim has to explain all that because it's not apparent from the...
Oh, no, he doesn't explain any of this.
Okay.
If it wasn't for the fact that I read the Joseph Conrad novel just this summer, I would get none of this.
Wow.
That's what's so funny to me about this. But yeah, it's just, but it's funny. I noticed I missed an issue of because I missed an issue of Cerebus. I can tell from the back, because the last one I got was Giant Size Public Defender. Occasionally, I think this is the second issue of Cerebus. Sometimes I just don't. The distributor just doesn't distribute them. I missed this one in the middle that is called Cerebus Goes to a Gay Bar.
Wow. That's an X-Men cover.
Yeah. You know, if I was going to miss one, that's probably the one to miss. But this one was just insane. It says, interesting about your dollar store stuff. My dollar stores sell remaindered graphic novels. Really crazy stuff like hardcover Star Trek, Batman, Ego, Batman Mongo, archive edition of Plastic Man. Wow.
Oh, those would be great to flip. The stuff that I bought
Yeah.
from my Dollar Tree. Oh, nothing. I still have a what is it? I have some novelizations of The Walking Dead. I thought, oh, that would sell. Didn't move at all. I'm almost tempted to draw zombies on the inside cover just to put some artwork to it, and maybe that will move. But again, sometimes those things can be hit or miss.
Yeah, it's going to be big collector's item because of the low print run. You and I, Sleepy, we'll start flipping them. We'll buy extra copies and start flipping them. Low print run. Jokes nobody will get but 6 people in the world.
That's amazing.
Oh, look, here comes Tim. Hey, Tim, how are you doing?
What's up?
I'm all right. Y'all doing all right?
Yeah, doing great.
Well, I'll listen to the universe at times. There's times where, it's just telling you things. And we have a comic book convention down here, and it's going to have Charles Vess in it. And I already got like a big stack of Charles Vess I pulled out last night, a little bit tonight. So I get back on there to see if anybody canceled, and it was Rags Morales that canceled. So I'm like, well, let's look for some more Charles Vess books. And I do his bibliography. Here's where the universe is talking to me. I was in there digging through my box, listening to you guys on my Cerebus box because Charles Vess is in one issue that I didn't realize. You started as soon as I finally moved everything to get to the box and opened the lid, and you're going, well, here's Steamboat Willie, in Apocalypse Now with Dave Sim. And I'm like, oh my God,
I gotta get on.
Tell me that you have Web of Spider-Man #1 in that group.
Funny you should say that. Not only do I have that, I'll show it in a minute. I have the Charles Vess cover with a backup story.
Here you go, Solo shaking chest.
Yeah. It's here. I cannot find my Solo. Oh no. Okay.
Yeah.
So
covers.
There you go.
Beautiful. Okay. That was my first #1 Spider-Man book.
Oh, fantastic. I think it still has the poster in it. But I met Charles Vess. I'm taking this tomorrow.
Let's solo that. Hold on. Let's see what it is. Oops, okay. I soloed Wilson. How did I do that?
Because he's gorgeous. He's gorgeous. He's a train riding gorgeous reader. Anyway. But this is his sketchbook from 1991. And I was a freshman in college the first time around. And he signed it for me in 1991.
Ooh.
When I met him. And I have a bone to pick with him about how he acted that day. So I'm going to, say, hey, Charles, 31 years ago, you were an ass. I hear you're better now. He lives 45 minutes from here. I've met him 2-3 times since then. And it's like nothing to go to the movies in Abingdon, Virginia, like on a Sunday. And you'll be walking in and there goes Charles Vess walking out back to his car, finishing his movie, So, but I got a big stack of Charles Vess books here. And I forgot that he did pages in Promethea #4 with Alan Moore.
Yeah. I have that. I didn't know.
Yeah. He wrote the adaptation of the Hook movie.
Okay.
Did the covers. I got all 4 issues of those. I don't have as many Swamp Things as I thought. But in all seriousness and stuff, I'm hoping he doesn't have a huge long line because I want to talk about his Midsummer's Night Dream story. I got a few questions if he has time. But Rags Morales canceled, so I had to put back some of my Forgotten Realms books I've carried around since I was a junior in college. And that's about it. That's been my evenings the last 2 nights. Is
books.
Yeah, pulling out books and stuff. Huh?
What show is it that you're going to?
It's called RobCon. ROB Con. It's named after Rob, the guy that owns Mountain Empire Comics in Bristol, Virginia, Tennessee, on the state line. this con started out on the sidewalk in front of his store.
Okay.
And I actually was a vendor for 2 years in 2005 and 6 when he was in the lobby of a theater around the corner from it. And he made his way up to Viking Hall and then a little stadium in Kingsport. And this time he's on a college campus. This is the first one in 2 years.
Okay.
And I was just talking about this. I've known this guy, Rob, since like 1988, 89. And the last couple of times I've seen him in his store, he's been like, I'm 68 years old. Good to see you, old friend. And I'm like, oh my God, in over 30 years, we've never went out to dinner or anything. I thought we had a business relationship. I didn't,
I've been going to my local comic shop for, well, it depends on how you count it. Either since I was in high school in the early 80s, because I had 2 comic shops throughout the 80s. The first comic shop opened near me, M&M Comics, in 1981 when I was 15. And that one closed in like 1999. But I had been going there that whole time. But also in about 1983, this second one opened, Paperback Exchange, now Comics Warehouse. And this one guy, Jack, owned it all the way up, I think, until the late 80s, maybe early 2000s. And then he sold it to a couple of customers. And I've been going, who are, Roy, who owns it now, who I've been going there for another 20 plus years. So,
Tim, is Scott going with you?
What was that?
Is Scott going with you to the con?
No, I don't think so. This is in the other direction from where Scott's at. Scott's towards towards Roanoke, going west. Wait a minute, excuse me, going east. This is west of me.
Have you heard from Scott?
Yeah, he's sending me messages every now and then, and things on Instagram and everything. I think he's doing all right. Yeah, I mean, he's still throwing some stuff out there. So it's like I get home from work and I'll find 5 messages in a day. Maybe 3 days later, I'll get some more. And then maybe a week will go by and I won't see him, or hear from him. We'll catch up with him at some point. Yeah. Here's the most eclectic Charles Vest thing I'm going to get him to sign, hopefully. Pirates of Darkwater.
Oh, okay. I remember that.
I know I have that book. I definitely know because I bought it. Do you have the Spider-Man graphic novel that he did?
No. I think I was like in 8th or 9th grade. No chance of getting to a comic book shop to get that. That was not on the stands. They actually sent him to Europe or something, paid for a trip to Europe or something, wherever that book is set in, so he could do sketches and stuff while he was out there.
Yeah, it looks like Comic Crack had seen Scott on IG as well. Okay.
Nice.
That book, he had to draw it, not the book itself, but he had to draw Spider-Man twice in that story, because when he first started working on it, as the legend is told to me, he drew Spider-Man in one color costume, and then we find out that Spider-Man does a costume change. So he had to redraw all the Spider-Man images to the correct costume to match what was going on. I think he started the story originally with the black costume, and then he had to make it into the red and blue costume.
If it was the other way around, that would have been simple. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
yeah. But speaking of Charles Vest and Spider-Man, he did the cover for an annual that has Art Adams art in it. And I think when you do a Charles Vest cover, when Art Adams is drawing it, instead of having Art that's a compliment, So.
Yeah.
Mind the Comics read his Spider-Man graphic novel a couple of years ago. Lovely art, awful story. I don't know if I've read it or not.
Was it something like Spirits of the Earth or something, or I don't know what it is.
I think it is. There's been so many Spider-Man graphic novels that I get the names all. It just all starts to blur together into one long story that doesn't always make sense.
Here's Instagram and graphic novels just reminded me of this. I've been on TikTok a bit lately. Because one of the reasons TikTok now makes you can now make long, like 3-minute videos. And there's a lot of people teaching stuff on TikTok now. So I find some interesting stuff now and then. And of course, I'm looking at comic book hauls or whatever, anything you have to do with comic books that's on TikTok. Wilson's on TikTok too. But I happened to stumble onto Colin Bunn, and he was showing off Marvel graphic novels. And he's like, oh, I got a lot of these Marvel graphic novels. I've been into them as late. I've been enjoying this format, blah, blah, blah. And I wrote to him, and I knew him, and I wrote to him, yeah, Aftershock has been using that format in the last couple of years, and I enjoy it. And I immediately thought to myself, I wonder if he's written any of those. I don't know, because I've bought them all, but I still don't remember if he wrote any. So I wrote that, in the comments section. He's like, oh, yeah, I know. I wrote a few of them. I was like, oh, that's nice. I didn't even remember that. Here I am telling him to check out the graphic novels that he's written.
I think I did that online to Derek Robertson. And then not only did he tell me he's read that, but he also informed me that he didn't draw whatever book I was recommending. And I got very confused and just apologized. I don't know why. I was like, did I make a mistake? What's he talking about? I went back and read it, and I felt like, I'm sorry,
I also reckon in the same thing he was showing, he's like, some of his graphic novels have stickers on them. And once again, I was like, get yourself some Bestine thinner. Those stickers will come. You know how many times I tell comic book people this? I even made a video about it. I'm like, this takes all stickers off.
Yeah, I had this week. I had taken off the sticker that you get on your Dunkin' Donuts order, and I had just plopped it down. And I usually never. The thing that I do the moment I get a comic book that I may have bought off of eBay, if there's tape on it, I remove the tape entirely. I get
I do that too. Immediately, tape, throw away.
Immediately, I remove it, toss it away. I like self-sealed bags.
I like these.
And so what I do is the moment I get something with tape, I just I have like a pile of tape I put on.
Removable, these tiny little 1/2-inch stickers, basically, but they're removable so they don't get stuck. This is what I keep my bags closed with. Where is one? I just stick one on the flap like it was a piece of tape, except it won't get stuck on the comic. If it gets stuck on the comic, you lift it right off. No tape holes.
Yep. I had too many comics get stuck trying to take it out of the bag. So now, the moment I get something new, I just completely remove the tape. So it was really surprising for me.
Bags, I get stuck all the time on the comic. I'm just like,
I never had a problem with the self ones.
Oh, I can't. By the way, that Sleepy Reader Smooth comment was for my Colin Bunn comment, but it works for you getting your sticker stuck on the direct currents too. Smooth. But if you ever get a sticker or have to remove tape, Bestine rubber cement thinner takes everything off.
Yeah, I have to get some. I haven't had any use for rubber cement, so I don't even have I may even still have my rubber cement picker-upper thingy, the original one that I bought in the 90s.
Comic crack. I live dangerously, packing tape all the way. Lunatic.
That's not funny, man. I've actually bought books at flea markets that when I got them home, it was packing tape. I've seen that. Painter's tape, blue painter's tape. That's not too bad.
Is good. That comes off at least. I've seen a lot of people use blue painter's tape to mark their comics too. I've seen people like when they put their comics in a bag, the first issue gets a piece of blues painter tape over the top so that they can find the first issues easily in their as they use them as dividers, sort of.
I'll tell you what I need answers to, and I'm convinced it was like the same collection. It just got split up over the years to all these little flea markets and stuff. Mm-hmm. Is every now and then I'll bring some books home, or I'll try to look at them in the shop there, try to open them up, and somebody has sealed them at the bottom. Like they're completely sealed, and it was homemade. You can see the seam on the bottom
like
of the
a
bag.
heel kind of
Yes.
thing?
And these are books from the 80s in yellowed bags. And I'm just like, who did this? This has got to be the same collection. Somebody sealed up all their books, and in my mind, they just died. And that's why they gave them away. They couldn't figure out how to open them. They were like,
Do you guys, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember back when boards and bags were kind of new. And there was a discussion because there were people who didn't win out in the end who always put the opening on the bottom of the bag so they could slip the comic out like that. Nowadays, you never find that. But like in the early 80s, there were people who they put their comics in the bag, what we consider upside down. That's how you put a comic in a bag. And there was a battle between people who did it that way and people who slipped it in the top.
I always wanted to know how people do store them, if they do it that way or, the wrong way. And again, it's one of those things is where, my mind is like to put it the way you said, the other way, to me, it's like, no, that's dangerous because if there's any moisture, again, think of floods and stuff like that. Sometimes you could grab the box and pick it up from the water quick enough, and if the bag is sealed at the bottom, the water just going to seep up through it.
Well,
that's why Lilliput was at war.
Also, something that's going to happen more often. I'm like, we've all the floods occur. You know what I mean?
I'd say I actually had some comics in a closet, and our water heater leaked, and I didn't know it. But the cardboard boxes were ruined, but the comics were fine.
Yeah,
they were in bags this way, so no water got into the bag.
Well, for people that put them, what you're talking about, bottom first, really upside down. I put some comics in a board upside down. I'm always finding that every now and then, right? So they're upside down, so the opening's on the bottom,
right?
And then you lift it up, and you're like, my comic's missing, and you've ruined your comics because it slides underneath the rest of them once it comes loose from that bag.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's why it's wrong. It will damage your comics when you go to pull it out of the box if it has not already slid out during the back and forth motion.
Mm-hmm.
But I still find people every now and then who are selling the books and they've got the bag taped at the bottom, like what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah. So that's probably an old school collection then.
Yeah, that's probably been around for a while.
The big thing I used to get in arguments about back in the 90s, and I switched my argument. I'm not going to say I was slimy. I'm just saying I was highly embarrassed once somebody actually explained it to me, was the backing board, smooth side or rough side against the comic. I said, smooth not side. The rough. It's not. I said, why would you put the rough side on the comic? That's going to be like sandpaper on your book. Then I actually read, what was it in? I want to say it was like a Wizard or something like that. And it turns out the smooth side is so it'll slide down the bag, and that rough side is rough because it's acid free.
No, it's the opposite. I've read, at least recently. The coated side is the acid free side. That's what I've read. I don't know.
Oh, I'm not going to argue because
I'm not going to argue either. I'm just telling you what I read.
They don't come with instructions. That's the thing because you never know. I never knew.
That's why you buy full backs. You don't have to worry about that.
I would go through some of the older collections that, like, if I haven't touched books since the 80s, and I had learned years later to eventually buy new bags and switch them out because they could just be sitting in the closet and the bags turn yellow and what have you. I didn't even know that was a thing when I was first collecting a few years later. And then if the bag's old enough, the bag is starting to fall apart. It's almost becomes a jelly, which was one of the scariest things I ever come across, where it's that wavery kind of look to it, and that blew my mind.
Now, again, grain of salt. This is just from practice. I don't remember every comic book set of bags and boards I ever bought. Okay,
right.
But the ones that turn to jelly, I think, are made out of polypropylene. I think that's it.
The old ones that they have made since the early 80s, right?
They still make them. I have to spec.
No, there's
Polypropylene is the good one. Polyethylene is the one that I make sure I don't get when I buy them. That's the one I think turns to jelly, like what you're talking about.
They don't make the ones that turn to jelly anymore, I don't think. What are these? Almost everything is polypropylene. The one that they used to make that turns to jelly, I don't think exists anymore.
Well, I'm not going to say they're going to turn to jelly, but the stores do have polyethylene or the other one.
I haven't seen it in years.
Yeah, I have to specify, and but those are the ones I think turn to jelly because I only have one set. I remember buying maybe 1 or 2 sets of those in the 90s, and those were jelly by 2010.
Oh, I bought them all in the 80s. They were jelly by the 90s, and I occasionally still run into one. I'm like, ooh, because they get sticky. But luckily, they don't actually affect the comic much because that's the comic. The comic affects the bag more than the bag affects the comic.
I hope so because there's nothing like going through an old, box of comics that it's got the jelly, the old bags, and your hands are black when you're done. Yeah.
If you buy these, are the E. Gerber. They're called fullbacks, and they're the expensive boards. They're 100% archival. There's no smooth side. There's no rough side. There's only 100% archival material. I don't buy these very much. I just have some for some art stuff.
Have you seen
I can't find my charger.
Transparent backing boards?
Depositions are being prepared as I type sleepy readers. Hold on. I missed all of this.
Hey guys, sorry. I may end up dropping out in a minute. I can't find my charger, and I'm down to something like 3%, so I'm going to hang in for a minute.
Okay, I'm not sure about the boards. Exactly. Chance of comic falling out when opening it is very probable. That's damaging the comic.
Yeah.
That's when it's on the bottom. Yeah. I see you're all newbies to the hobby. Let me get the lawyers, GB.
On Wednesday, we did the fossil show at Grotu's channel because Graphic Man was on holiday. So some guy went on a chat and he was bugging Grotu because he doesn't put his old Harveys in bags.
The comics will turn yellow anyway. And it's not the bags turning the comics yellow. It's the comics turning the bags yellow.
Yeah, I feel weird like saying things because we have no idea how long Elias has been, collecting comics. He may very well know this, But the thing is all you're doing is taking steps to slow the aging process down. That's all we're doing. They're still rotting away, Now, next week, Paulo, they got I messaged Graphic Man. We got a Blue Ridge 5-day metal festival going on at a racetrack. Then I'll let you know which one it is. So I'll be on the racetrack. They're going to have Anthrax, Alice Cooper, Guar, Tenacious D, and then all these like emo and death metal bands I've never heard of and stuff like Lamb of God and stuff like that. That's Wednesday to Sunday. So I'll let you know about the racetrack, Paulo.
It's in VIR. Okay. It's at VIR. Okay.
Yeah. My wife corrected me today when she called me. And Wilson, I think I just interrupted you. I'm so sorry.
No, that's totally fine. I was going to say that there are, going back to boards, have you guys ever seen the transparent backing boards?
Yeah.
Okay. I've never used those, but I saw those pop up. And it's like, that's interesting just, to see the back cover type of thing. But it's like, the more of these cool things that pop out, it's like, I just can't see spending that kind of money on certain, things. And it's like, yeah, there are books that you own that you want to do the best protection on them as well. But at the same time, it's like, wow, that's a huge price. And again, it's more plastics onto this.
Yeah.
How long can those possibly last? But you mentioned Alice Cooper, and it got me thinking that there's a connection to comics. There's been so many Alice Cooper comics.
Yeah. I got that. Oh gosh, what was it? It's Marvel something. I want to say Marvel Premiere, but that doesn't sound right. I think I have that one. He's getting dragged. He's getting dragged into the asylum with the jacket on there. And then the Neil Gaiman stuff. I got that. that I've never been able to finish that gaming story. It puts me to sleep. I mean, it was my first ASMR comic book.
I agree, but I've seen very white Golden Age comics. Yeah, it can happen.
Now, the way I buy the comics and the way things pop up, I'll have these different backing boards that he's talking about, the clear ones and stuff. It's not me buying them; they're just in the collection. But I want to say about 11 years ago, they had these really cool backing boards that when you flipped them over, it was like Superman, Batman, and all them. It might have been like a DC 52 thing.
Oh, okay, I remember.
They're real sturdy. I don't know how they affect the book and stuff, but they look nice, man.
Yeah, they did those as a giveaway kind of promotion. But this is the one that really surprised me when I looked at it a couple of years ago, and I complained to Walter Simonson. This is 1982. It came out. Remember Baxter paper, the new Better Than Newsprint? This surprised me at how yellow it's gotten. And now this is only sat in a bag. It's been in Mylar for years. Only sat in a bag, not doing anything. And look how yellow this paper is. Let's see if we can get it.
Yep.
There's a white piece of Bristol there.
Mine's the exact same way. Now, what gets me is that the way that it starts yellowing, again, this is just where a guy pulls out his books every couple months to read them. My Legion, a few things.
I didn't even pull this one out
for
20 years.
Well, I would pull a storyline or something out every now and then and stuff. And the way it ages is that it looks like somebody took like a match lightly around the corners, around the outside of the paper. It goes from yellow outside in. So that tells me it must be the air or something creeping into the paper or something. It starts from the outside and works its way in before it's completely yellow.
I've seen that on newsprint This one's completely evenly yellow all the way across.
Yeah, it's a process. Once it starts, it does not stop. It's like,
I complained to Walter. I was like, hey, they promised us these nice, bright, white Baxter pages that wouldn't yellow like newsprint. He was like, I never made you that promise.
That's awesome. Guys, I want to go. I don't know why I'm still on. I got 1%. I want to find my charger. Thanks for having me. Good to see everybody.
All right, we'll catch
you. Have a good time at the con.
Thanks, man. Wait.
But this one really surprised me at how yellow it got.
I was not expecting to look at mine.
Then pull yours out. Give it a look. Because I think I've had other Baxter paper from that time that isn't that yellow.
It's been a while since I looked at those books, so it can be. The comic book he was talking about was Marvel Premiere issue 50. It's the Alex Cooper. It's the Alex Cooper book.
I took all my old collection out of bags, and the stuff I buy now I don't bag. It's all reader and reference copies to me now. Stressed out about conditions so much in the 90s, I kind of go against it now. The only I've been using I don't usually use boards. Sometimes, 3% of my collection has boards. Maybe 3 to 5%. But the main reason I like bags is I move my comics around a bit. Kind of the way I have my collection, I kind of move stuff around here, and it makes them easier because that's when as a kid, that's when I always wrecked some comics that I didn't want to wreck, was when I was moving them around or sorting them. With bags, you don't have to worry about that. That's kind of why I like them mostly. If you have a character,
by the time I get them into the white
yellowing
boxes.
is even faster. That's how bad tobacco is. Nick Furies are yellow as can be.
When I move them out finally out of these, I usually do put them into bags, not necessarily boards. When I put them into the white boxes, but it really depends on where the comic book is going. Because then I have a set of books that I'll have as reference if I'm working on a project, like if I'm doing sketch cards, or I know I'm going to be doing sketch cards soon. I have those books near me out, and then once I start putting stuff away, I bag them.
Bag them. They're just laughing at Gus. Let's see, another comic I got this week. What a terrible cover. Death Dealer number 4. And there is nothing very interesting about this cover. There was probably better covers if I wanted to. There's the Death Dealer helmet guy, and there's a bear not even looking at him. in a gray background, the same tone as these two. That is, I'm sorry, that's
How,
just a terrible cover.
how
Who
do you
did
mess
this?
up a Frazetta inspired?
I don't know. Let's. Oh, here the other cup. There it is without its logo. Nothing interesting about it, with or without the logo. There's the actual Frazetta cover. Would have preferred that one. Let's see what
Yeah,
else we have. 32-bit version. And then
that's actually kind of fun
yeah, that
for
one's all
a
right.
Sega
Then another
knockoff.
guy's Death Dealer Standing There version, which is still better than the bear cover.
Who published that? Do they, the Frazetta
This
self-publish
they're
that,
new.
or
Opus. This is Opus. This is their first comic.
okay?
I started smoking cigars as a late teen because Wolverine did. It was really because of that, and that is why. Oh God, his name Joe Quesada, when he took over as editor in chief, made everybody stop smoking. And I don't think anybody smoked since. And even though a lot of people complained that it was politically correct to make Wolverine stop smoking, Joe Quesada's father died from lung cancer, and he's like, "No way am I going to encourage anyone to smoke." I believe there's a 4-color fossils who smokes. I'm trying to dodge $4.99 books, but finding at least one each week. Yeah, it is. Once again, I'm at a crossroads with this book. It's $4.99. This is the one I was deciding whether to put it on my list or not because it was a $4.99 book. I eventually said I would, but now we're getting a new artist with next issue who did a couple of pages in this issue and looks all right. But I'm like, this is the new artist. It looks Frazetta-ish. Here, let me see if I can go solo again. And they have it kind of monochrome story-wise. It fit, but I'm like, do I really want to have a book on my pull list that changes artist every few issues? That is not something I'm into. Especially a $5 book. So then I was like, well, I'm like, all right, we'll leave it on for now. But it was a good issue. I mean, this was the end, I think, of the first story arc. Only 4 issues, but a good, barbarian story. Death Dealer is this guy who made this deal with the devil, I guess. Not quite the devil. He made this deal with the helmet he wears. where this, like, I don't know what you'd call him. A demon possesses the helmet. So he gives him, like, superpowers when he needs them. But he's kind of chaotic. So when he needs superpowers, he's got to embrace this chaotic demon who also talks to him all the time. Kind of like Deathlock, how the computer was always talking to him.
Mhm.
Except it's not a computer; it's a crazy demon.
Right.
Yeah. Although I don't believe he trades his comics so that he's the only one who will notice. Then he will. Oh, I missed that one. 4-color. Maybe offer a coupon for recreational mono at $3.99 bucks.
And the 4-color fossil who smokes is Eric Green.
Ah.
Although he usually puts out the camera when he smokes.
Smoking in the boys' room.
I know there were stories about I don't know which inker it was that every time his artwork would come in, you get the FedEx box full of artwork and you open it up and all you get is the smoke.
I've heard a
And the
few
pages
stories
are
like that.
drenched with the cigarette smoke in it.
Yeah. I smoke quite a bit, and my books are out on shelves with no protection. White books I bought a few months apart are all different colors of tan. Wow. Wow. Yeah, smoke will do that to books.
Oh yeah, that's the other problem with buying stuff off of eBay is you have no idea what you're going to get. And I did get a book once where it was like it just was all, and there was nothing in the description that it came from a smoker. And the moment I was able to smell it through the package.
Wow.
When I got the package, and it was
what you have to do with those, and I've done this with used books, is put them in a paper bag with a dryer sheet.
Okay.
Not just for smoke. I've had just, used books that smell musty too.
Right.
Are you liking the Death Dealer story? Yeah, I am enjoying the Death Dealer story. It's nothing to write home about, but it's a solid sort of barbarian story, an Elric-ish story in that, Elric is kind of the father of all these stories where he had this cursed sword that stole souls. And sometimes the cursed, Stormbringer would kind of take over Elric and he'd kill people he didn't want to kill. Death Dealer's got a little bit of that in it too. Not that he's stealing souls, but he's, killing people. Because when he embraces he has some line he has to say, like, where is it? That Death Dealer makes him say. Let me see if I can, like, Death Dealer, come on down, or something. I don't even remember what it was.
So you have to recite an oath?
Kind of like that, but let me see where he said, go ahead, say it. We are Death Dealer. That's it. He's like, looks like this is it, kiddo. Hell is here. It's up. It's up. It's up us. Say it or you're dead. He goes, fuck it. We are Death Dealer. And then he gets his Death Dealer power.
All right, so it's a short one. It's not gone form of man type of length, but at least, okay, it's something. It was had a conversation years ago about how many heroes have a type
We
of
are
an oath
Death
to
Dealer.
activate their powers.
Yeah. Only the Stan Lee women, though, had powers that would make them faint if they used them. Invisible Woman, Ms. Marvel, probably others. It's like, oh, my powers, I'm using them. I have to faint. It's like, come on. Human Torch doesn't faint when he flames on. The Thing doesn't faint when he lifts something heavy. That always bothered me as a kid. I was like, what's going on here?
Especially the way that Jean Grey and Sir Richards became much more powerful throughout the years.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of ridiculous. One that didn't faint, but her power could be useless if the plot called for it.
Oh, Friar Tuck. I traded books with a smoker, so basically 50 books for $1, so I didn't care. Yeah, 50 books for one.
Oh yeah, if you could use it to your advantage.
Readers was all I was looking for, and grew up in late 80s, early 90s bar hopping when smoking was allowed. Oh, listen, I hate smoking because I grew up in the 70s when people would smoke in closed cars without even cracking a window in the winter.
Yeah, so
forget bars and you haven't enjoyed smoking until you're an 8-year-old in an enclosed car in the winter with two adults in the front seat smoking.
In 2006, when they finally forbade people from smoking in the workplace here, the people who smoked turned out to be the ones who got more oxygen after that, because they would have to go out of the building to smoke, so they'd get fresh air. And I didn't smoke, so
two parents who smoked into my teens. Smokers' windows were a thing. No windows opening in these cars in the 70s. Forget it. You were just an annoying kid if you were choking to death on smoke.
In the back of the car with no seatbelts, of course.
Yeah.
And there was no air conditioning in a lot of these cars. So it was basically, here's a hot car, get into, and don't have a seatbelt. And we're not going to let the car cool down. Just get in. We got to go.
There are legendary Marvel bullpen stories from the late 70s, early 80s about battles between anti-smoker Rick Parker and smoker, I think it was Maury Kuramoto. We'll have to ask Rick. But Rick has told some stories about, because one of them, I think it was Maury, used to smoke all day in the bullpen, and Rick really didn't enjoy sitting next to a constant cloud of smoke. Yeah, the little corner in the window in the front seat. Yeah, they didn't open that. It was too cold out to open that. I know exactly the little triangular window you mean, but smokers didn't open that. At least the ones I knew in the 70s, they didn't care. If you complained about, so that's why I became so anti-smoking, like in the 90s especially, is because growing up, where if you complain, like no one in my family smoked, so it was cool. But if you complained about cigarette smoke in like the 70s or 80s, you were the bad guy. You were the annoying complainer. That's why, oh man, I'd go berserk on people. You want to mess with me? I'll mess with you.
In my high school, you could smoke outside. You could smoke outside. You just couldn't smoke inside.
That was considered, to ask somebody not to smoke near you was considered impolite. So, and you know, when you're 10, you don't want to be impolite. So I just used to suffer. By the time I was 20, I was done suffering.
In junior high, kids had to go behind the sports pavilion to smoke. Because junior high here is when you're 10 and 11. So
high schools in Texas had smoking sections up until the late 80s. There were informal smoking sections in my, well, there wasn't, it was, if you smoked in high school, you went outside and did it surreptitiously. Oh, your parents were old school hardcore. Yeah, there was no smoking from my parents. You see, smoker must be careful with air drafts. It's amazing how that has changed. Yeah, it really is. No, you know what I used to do? I used to love to pull pranks on my smoker friends. My favorite prank to do was to ruin their cigarettes by taking a pin and pull a couple of cigarettes out of their pack and put pinholes up the side. And then just put it back. Then they'd go to light it, and they'd draw, and they couldn't get any smoke, but smoke would billow everywhere. And I'd just go, I was like, I don't care.
Although I've never smoked a cigarette, but I do enjoy the odd cigar every now and then. It's just I really don't even hardly remember to buy one. So I haven't smoked one in what, 4 or 5 years.
People who smoke cigars were generally more polite about it because they know their cigars are crazy stinky or whatever. You know, they know that people don't want to smell. So that cigar smokers, well, they're also fewer and far between compared to cigarette smokers. So
yeah, I smoked a cigar because Jack Kirby smoked a cigar.
Because I got my father to smoke this ashtray from Sears, claimed the ashtray smoked his cigarette. I've been tempted to dip. Wow. There's a certain brand of cigarettes that always reminds me of art and drawing because my grandfather smoked them when he taught me. We used to, in college, you know, and this was I don't think there was any smoking. Well, you couldn't smoke in the art room, but you could go out to the lobby and smoke. I don't know what that was, which was right outside the art room. But we used to make deadline cigarettes where, I don't know who, one of my friends invented it, where you'd take masking tape and you'd roll it up until you made a little cigarette stub, and then you'd paint it with marker or whatever to make it look like a lit cigarette. So you'd paint the bottom with yellow to make it look like the filter, and then do a little brown around the top of the filter, and then take the black and put it on the end, and then some red in so it looked like a lit cigarette. And then you we got deadlines. We got deadlines. And we'd pretend we were smoking cigarettes because we get deadlines. And we got deadlines.
Yes, there were still people running around adults. When they ran out of money for cigarettes, they'd go around looking for used butts.
Oh yeah,
and they taped 3 together, and so it made for a full cigarette.
When I was 8, I'd buy Benson and Hedges cigarettes for my mom. Yeah, that was common. Go down to the store and get some cigarettes.
Yeah, I bought cigarettes for my mom, and again, being 8 years old, you know, in the Bronx in the 80s, we were able to buy cigarettes being a kid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not just cigarettes. I mean, if my mom or dad, they go down to the grocers and get me a bottle of wine, no problem.
Yep. Get me some wine. Deadline cigarettes. I had one in. What we used in school for our art supplies too was a tackle box. You could either get an art bin, which
Yep.
was a tackle box for artists, except for 3 times the price, or you could go to the actual fishing section and get a tackle box. That's where we carried all our art supplies in school, and I think I had my Deadline cigarette in there for like 10 years after school too. It was just sitting in. It might, for all I know, I still have the tackle box out in the garage. It might still be in there for all I know. I'll have to look one of these days.
I still have my art bin from college.
Yep.
And it wasn't until after I bought it I realized this is just a tackle box
Yeah, me
with
too.
the art bin logo on it. I
Yep.
got a tackle box. And
Matter of
there are
fact,
some nice looking tackle boxes out there too that is
I
cheaper and had a better compartment storage to them.
I actually, like I think I told the story before about I was the guy. They sent us a supply list. Before I went off to art school, they sent us a supply list, and I dutifully went to the art store before school and bought all the stuff on the supply list. Cost me like $300. Here I am. I was 18 at the time with 300 in 1984. $300 was a freaking lot of money. And one of them was an art bin. Then that year during school, I bought a tackle box that was bigger and held more stuff.
Right.
Cigarettes are lousy nowadays, probably a quarter of the strength comparing to 20 years ago.
Yeah, and they're 4 times more expensive.
I'm just logging in, but smoking in film noirs were always artistic, to say nothing of 80s hard rock guys.
Right.
I was just laughing at my friends
Or in
this
European movies,
week.
they smoke like this. That's why in America you think Europeans smoke cigarettes like this, because it's in movies.
Well, is that Casablanca that was in?
Yeah,
Yeah.
nobody actually smokes like this. This doesn't make any sense.
Just a month ago, I was laughing at my friends who are
Those
all ex-smokers now, and they were reminiscing about smoking, going, I used to love smoking. And the one thing that always cracked me up about smokers is they all think they look cool smoking. And I'm just like, nobody thinks you look cool smoking except other smokers. I was like, you're sitting out there, especially my favorite, the least uncool smoking thing was in the 90s, when they finally banned smoking in office buildings. The huddled smoke, every smoker you ever saw was in January in Manhattan, huddled outside their building, clutching their coats closed, going. That is you would see 40 smokers a block going, and I'm like, you guys think you look cool? What is going on in your mind? But smokers think they look cool smoking, and I'm always like, you don't really look cool. You look like an addict puffing away. But they're black and white movie people did do some cool stuff with smoke, but the smokers still never looked cool.
Yeah, but the only reason why they smoked in movies was they gave them something to do with their hands. So it was
And it
kind of
looked
a
cool on
necessity.
screen, the actual smoke. Instead of having a plain dark background, you can texture it with some smoke.
My favorite smoking story has to be about what Walt Disney would do, because Walt avid chain smoker, and so when you see photos of Walt, it becomes a legend. It's like, oh, there's Walt pointing at stuff because he has his 2 fingers pointing, and that wasn't it. He did not want his photo taken with the cigarette, but he would never put the cigarette down. So photos would be taken with him with the cigarette, and then he had someone on staff Photoshop the cigarettes out.
Airbrush, as it was in those days.
It wasn't even a Photoshop. It was airbrush all the cigarette smokes out. So when you see any picture of Walt with the famous 2-finger point, it's because they airbrushed the cigarette out of his fingers.
The people who think they look cool smoking are like bikers that think the loud bikes are awesome. I think that everyone thinks they're going into the danger zone. There is a good comparison.
Yes, everybody knows that bikes suck because they're missing two wheels. Only cars are cool.
You hear a loud motorcycle, you go right by, and you're like, "What is that nut doing?" They're like, "I'm being cool."
There's one thing that makes you knowledgeable about that makes you actually cool in cars. Are you a Porsche person or a Ferrari person? The answer determines whether you're cool or not.
I'm a Triumph person, man.
Well,
not really. I just wanted to say that.
Some personality. I mean, Triumph hasn't built any car since 1983, but
I'm very nostalgic for the Triumph TR7 TV commercial. Triumph TR7, the shape of things to come, and they draw a triangle around the car.
Everybody knows that the last good Triumph was a TR4. So
yeah, no, I didn't find out till I was well into an adulthood that even Triumph fans hated the Triumph TR7. But the commercial sure was cool when you were 10.
That's why my favorite car is still the original Batmobile.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me now that they had Triumph TV commercials on over here in America. I've never seen anybody in a Triumph.
They sold better in California.
Yeah. They must have only had them in like the New York City area and the LA area or something like that.
Well, they race TR3s and TR4s in Sports Car Club of America races.
Come on, Jared. You remember Guns N' Roses and those guys? Cigarettes was a prop for those bands. I was never a Guns N' Roses fan, so but I was a Tom Waits fan, still am, and cigarette sure was a prop for him too. But I just never thought they looked cool because of it. They looked cool because they were rock stars. Modern cars don't have an ashtray. Yeah,
that's right, they don't. And
I mean, the members of Guns N' Roses working at your local 7-Eleven are not looking cool. Members of Guns N' Roses up on stage playing their music, they're looking cool.
We have a Portuguese rock band. They've been in the business for 35 years, but the lead guitar, well, the rhythm guitar died, but the lead guitar is playing, and even if it's a 5-minute song, the cigarette stays here.
There's some famous guitarist, I can't remember who it is now, who used to have burn marks up on the head of his guitar because he's put his cigarette there when he was playing.
Yeah.
I have no idea who it is, but that just popped into my head. Oh, and here's a book I finished. This is one I got for my birthday in the beginning of August, but I finished reading it. Realist, Last Day on Earth. And it turns out this is the 4th collection by Asaf Hanuka, Asaf Hanuka, and he's Israeli. However you would pronounce that. Asaf Hanuka. It almost sounds Japanese. Reed Richards smoked a pipe as Matt Murdock and Professor X. Robbie from the Daily Bugle was the long-lasting one. That's right. There was a lot of pipes at Marvel. Probably because Jack Kirby smoked one. But this is turns out this is a collection of comic strips that he did for an Israeli newspaper. And holy cow, can this guy cartoon? He can really draw. Let me see if I get a good his just full page stuff. Let me go big on this. His full page stuff is terrific. And some of his let me see if I can get a good one. Here's just a story, a little sequence of him making eggs. There's another little sequence of the strips themselves are kind of middle of the road in terms of it's mostly about him and his family. A couple of them were really touching, but it didn't blow me away in terms of content, but it blew me away in terms of just his ability to cartoon. It's just like he was just so good at telling his stuff, even if the stuff he had to tell me wasn't particularly insightful. It's kind of his everyday life, and just this is kind of the cover, just stuff like this, where he has himself breaking out of his own mind, his own artistic block, very well visualized. It's just here's a nice color one at in front of the shark. Just his ability to communicate visually is just A plus. I really enjoyed it. His sense of color is terrific. Like here's one. Where's the whole thing is about him having hay fever or something, and you're like, all right, he's got hay fever. That was amusing. Here's one. Him taking a family vacation. Fun stuff. Nothing particularly mind blowing, but man, this guy's got talent. There's some COVID stuff at the end of him getting shots and things, but I like this is one just to read through because like his ability to get points across visually is just brilliant. So it's good stuff. That looks like great art. It truly is. Like I said, it's not just great art. GGIF peoples, good evening, 62 Lefty. It's not just great art. He's very good at communicating with his art. Just you get the idea of what he's talking about right away. Like I just love this. Even like I said, the idea his wife is wondering where the last piece of pie is. After she's staying up there, where's the pie? That is just so well done. They got a laugh out of Wilson. Like it's not the deepest thing, it's not the most brilliant thing, but I can't imagine it being better done.
Yeah, he can get. He has a solid storytelling, and I do like the coloring on that too.
Yeah,
his use of color on that.
See another big one. Here he is. And sometimes I don't even know what the point is. Like here, this is just one of his family ones. He's got all his kids tattooing him. I guess it's, about the marks that your kids leave on you. But it's just good stuff. If you're ever looking for some good visuals, The Realist. Like I said, I think there's another 3 volumes of this. This was the last volume. All
Nice.
one-page strips. I think there was a Foom cover, Howard the Duck, Ben Grimm, Fury, etc., where they're all smoking cigars. Could be. They certainly all smoked cigars.
Yep.
I still remember the Spider-Man scaring the Thing into swallowing his cigar as the Thing was reading Salem's Lot. That was one of the Jim Starlin Warlock. I think it was Marvel 2-in-1 annual that ended the original Thanos story. There's just a scene where where the Thing is reading Salem's Lot at night, smoking a cigar, and Spider-Man comes down from the ceiling and taps on his shoulder, and the Thing gasps in and swallows the cigar. I don't remember why I remember that gag all these years later, but
what I also remember about that book is in that story, there's a cat walking around in the Fantastic Four building, and you only ever saw it in those two and that little interaction, and they never mentioned them having a cat. But for some reason, that was the thing that stuck out to me. It was a funny gag. And it's like, whose cat is that? I don't know if it was Agatha's because she babysat for them for a while, but I don't know if it coincides with the time that she was watching Franklin. But there was he's reading the book, and you see the cat walk by, and then Spider-Man pops up, but it's like, whose cat is that? Well, I've never seen a cat hanging out.
The Cat
What's
Who
that?
Walks Through Walls. Have you ever read that book?
No, I have not.
It's one of the last Robert Heinlein books. I don't really remember what it was about, but the name comes from. I love this concept. In this, sci-fi universe, there were cats who could literally walk through walls. So if the cat bonded with you, it was now your cat. You could not get away from it because it could walk through walls. So if the cat decided that you were its human, you were its human. That was the
Wow.
concept behind these cats and the title of the book.
Okay.
I was found that if the cat picks you, it's your kind of reversed the pet relationship.
Right.
I'm guilty in indulging a cigar on occasion. However, I never smoke in my home or with people around me. Since marijuana is legal here, that's more of an issue. Just remember, we all have our addictions. Yeah. But cigarettes was the worst because, like I said, people, especially in this up until the 70s and the 80s, you were the impolite one if you asked people not to smoke in an enclosed car. Think about that for a second. In an enclosed car, people would smoke. And if you would say, please don't do that, or please crack a window, you were the impolite one.
Yeah,
That
I
was kind of nuts.
that
I
should
could
depend on
never
whether
ask.
it's your car or somebody or their car.
What was that?
Should depend on whether it's your car or their car. I mean,
Oh no,
they should,
it'd be anyone's car. If you were the driver and the other person smoked, they'd just light up. There was no asking. There was no do you mind. They would just light up because that was normal.
Yeah, I when I grew up, my parents smoked, my aunt smoked. There was no asking, hey, because being a kid, there was
Yeah.
just no asking about it. And then when I was old enough I didn't smoke myself, but I did, like I said, occasionally smoke cigars. But those were usually at conventions,
Yeah.
and they were outside. I never smoked indoors or
Yeah.
anything like that.
People never smoked cigars like they smoked. Cigarettes are omnipresent. They were
Yeah.
a constant addiction, and
Mhm.
you'd smoke anywhere. It didn't matter because you smoking was more important than anything else, and everybody treated it as such.
Yeah.
Like the first step in the breaking of that was somebody saying, "Please don't smoke in my car." That was like step one. I'm a dog person, but that concept of cat on cat sounds intriguing. Yeah, I like that. I still remembered all the Jack Kirby smoked pipes and cigars and drew them in the comics. Yeah, he always did. Born in the 60s, we grew up in a world of smoke. Sure thing, 1966. Like my parents didn't even smoke, but like my neighbors did. And occasionally when I like had to go somewhere in my neighbor's car, it was torture. It was just like, well, first of all, he used to work at Con Edison, which is, I don't know, his commute driving was probably, depending on the time of day, half an hour to an hour, and he'd be smoking the whole time. So the car already stank. You just get in that car and go, whoa. And then he'd smoke the whole time in the car in winter with the windows rolled up. And I'd be like going, oh, I'm never getting in this car again. My stomach would start to churn.
I remember when we go to bars and stuff like that, it's always smoking. Go to conventions,
Oh,
they
yeah.
were always cigarette smoke. And then I remember almost clearly when it was outlawed almost everywhere, and it's like it was wild because it depended on what state you were in, whether or
Right.
not you could smoke in a bar or not. So there were certain conventions we'll be at that we got so used to there not being smoke that it
Mhm.
became like a weird thing to run into a town that, oh wow, they're smoking here. That's
Mhm.
weird. It was just so out of place that it,
And
it became, I wouldn't even say a novelty because it wasn't fun, but it was like,
yeah.
oh, wow, that's, I had a tolerance to it. The moment I noticed it, it was like, okay, we got to go. That was one of the best things ever is when when they stopped
Got rid of smoking.
when they got rid of it in bars. And
And the reason, and I like the reason they finally were able to get rid of it is because people are like, my freedom to smoke, my freedom to smoke. Unsafe workplace conditions was why they finally had to get rid of it, because you're not allowed to put your employees in an unsafe workplace. And that was
Okay.
it wasn't even for the customers. They would not get rid of, no matter how many customers didn't like smoking, they weren't getting rid of smoking because customers complained, because once again the people who wanted to smoke were the loudest.
Yeah.
So finally, like in New York State, it was like, you can't, if you're going to get fined out of business and sued. Your employees can sue you, and they will win if you put them in. That's eventually why they had to get rid of smoking. And guess what? All the restaurants didn't go away. All the bars didn't go. Everybody was like, no, we can't get rid of smoking. Nobody will come to bars or restaurants anymore. It's like, you know what? People still go to bars and restaurants.
Oh yeah.
It affected the bottom line not one bit.
Mm-hmm.
Can you still smoke in New York City streets? No. It depends if it's the public sidewalk, like you can't smoke in Bryant Park. I know that.
Right.
Bryant Park, because I've seen people get mad because someone comes over to them and is like, no, you can't smoke in the park. You have to go out to. So New York City streets are weird in that part of the sidewalk can be public and part of the sidewalk can be public. And I think in the public parts, you can still smoke. The private parts are up to the owner of the property. So they can tell you no. And a lot of owners of property say, you can't smoke within 10 feet of our doorway, because they don't want the people working in the building huddled out in front of the buildings. Because that's what would happen. There'd be half a dozen people at any time of the day standing in front of the doorway of the building smoking, so that if you walked into their building, you had to go through a cloud of smoke. So eventually, I'm sure the building owners got tired of hearing the complaints and are like, so now everybody smokes between the buildings. Like, not between as in an alleyway, but if there's one doorway here and one doorway here, you go between the buildings, between the doorways, and smoke. Cigars for me is relaxing. Cool factor is something I don't think about, but I do agree it was a different time when people smoked without being courteous to others. It wasn't even a thought to be courteous to others. Smoking or non-smoking for restaurant when I was a kid. Yeah, that was the first step, but that was always a joke because smoke didn't stay still. I sit out back and smoke a cigar and listen to the show, Eliza. Cigars.
And then picking. You had when again doing conventions, making sure that you were in a non-smoking room.
Oh, that was yeah.
Because again, the room would always smell like smoke, no matter what. So it's like, again, one of those things that they were all over the place. Where with a cigar, it was something so different about it, and again, it's a courtesy thing too. Because I would smoke with my, like I said, at conventions I would smoke because my buddy Tom from CoMiCs, he smoked cigars because Jack Kirby smoked cigars. So while I was in San Diego, I would be smoking a cigar with him. And then Mark Texiera used to smoke cigars. So and since I was the only one in the area that was smoking cigars with Tex would buy me cigars. So it's like, all right, I'll hang out with Tex and smoke cigars. But again, it was like there was a cigar smoking to me was more of the sense of you're taking your time and you're relaxing. Cigarette, you're doing something, you're going someplace.
The cigar smoking is an event.
Yes.
And everybody who's smoking a cigar is aware it's an event. Cigarette smoking is an addiction. You smoke cigarettes because you can't stop smoking cigarettes. You like that little burst of getting high, and your body demands it. So it's not like it's not. I remember having a conversation with one guy I met at a party who said quitting heroin was easier for him than quitting cigarettes, and quitting heroin wasn't easy. Sounds like a good idea, 62 Lefty Blue. There's a lot of smoking in those Frank Miller Daredevil comics. Yeah, because he was influenced by the noir movies. Reed Rippin Slabs Smoking Edition. Every cover has someone smoking. I got some Reed Rippin Slabs ready. Should we do one before we go off? Let's see.
Yeah.
Why not? Let's see what I got ready to share. I think I have an old one up. What is this? 1966 August Marvel Split Books. There we go.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
There we go. A Marvel Split Books one. We got Tales of Suspense 83, Strange Tales 150, and Tales to Astonish 85. I don't remember seeing that Tales to Astonish cover.
That was new to me as well.
Who's drawing that? I can't even tell.
That's got to be Marie's cover.
I'm thinking Marie.
That's Marie. It doesn't look.
Oh,
it's not. It's Ditko-ish, the face, but it's not Ditko.
No, it's not Ditko. That body.
Matter of fact, that looks like a Gene Colan Iron Man.
I'm thinking that's Gene Colan Iron Man.
But I'm not sure if he drew it that early.
It did. It's probably one of the Adam Austin stories.
Oh, okay. Is that a Oh, who's Dan Atkins, Doctor Strange?
Yeah, looks like it.
Yeah, it looks like it to me.
May not be by him.
She almost looks Romita, but
it's tough to tell. The thumbnail, the resolution is kind of low on these too. But yeah, that's definitely not a Hulk cover that gets shown a lot. I don't know that I've seen it much.
The foot makes me think it's Marie.
Yeah.
Tough call.
Cigars are given out to mark an occasion. Yeah, that's true. There's hardly a graphic novel with a cigar or pipe smoker. It's an easy way to give some weight to a character. Reed Strange, Rip Iron Man, and Slab the Hulk. Okay. Slab Iron Man, Reed Strange, and he's going to rip the Hulk too.
Yeah, I'm probably going to rip Iron Man, Reed Hulk, and Slab Strange.
I think I like that Doctor Strange cover best, so I'm going to slab it. And I know I've read what's in that Hulk, but I've never seen the cover.
I haven't read the other story, but I've read the Captain America story inside that tells of suspense, and it is part of the AIM storyline that leads up to MODOK.
Is that a Kirby Captain America?
Yes, Kirby J. Quiet.
I hate to have to rip up the Hulk though. He was my favorite as a kid. I'm gonna read the Hulk, slab Iron Man, and rip up Tales of Suspense. Read Slab Strange Tales, read Tales to Astonish, and rip up Tales of Suspense. Iron Man, I'm gonna have to rip up Kirby Captain America. Ooh.
Yeah,
that's tough.
Strange Tales is still Kirby Shield. Because Steranko only starts in 153. That's
okay.
I would slab Tales of Suspense. This is a colon cover. I would probably read the Hulk. Yeah.
You're ripping up Strange Tales?
And I'm ripping up Strange Tales.
Oh, it's a tough.
It's a tough one because I know I would have more enjoyment reading the Hulk, I think. Mm-hmm. Because the Nick Fury stuff didn't really do anything for me. And the Doctor Strange, for me, back then was hit or miss.
Right. The Hulk is not just off model. He's just not well drawn. Yeah.
The Doctor Strange run after Ditko quits, they go through the same motions. It's just that they use Umar instead of Dormammu, and they use Kalu instead of Baron Mordo, and the Living Tribunal instead of Eternity. So,
And the talk about Hulk being off model, that just reminded me, Hulk didn't have a model for a long time. Because if you remember
No,
the first issue, Jack Kirby described him as a handsome Frankenstein, and he used Marlon Brando as a model. So if you look at that first issue of the Hulk, he really is more handsome and looking like Brando than I ever remembered. I remember when I read that, I went back and looked at it. I was like, wow, it is. And then Jack Kirby never really, with those first 6 issues, Jack Kirby never really found a model for him. And then Ditko came along. And the Ditko model really was Ditko-esque in terms of a real. I don't think anyone else really drew the Hulk like Ditko. And then Gil Kane was there early, and he kind of did a Ditko thing, but once again, nobody was really drawing like Gil Kane. So I don't think until really Trimpy there was a Hulk model. He was drawn all over the place that I can think of.
all over the place, and even in the Avengers, I want to say issue 2, he had 3 toes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was
He does
issue
not
2,
look.
and it's like, so he
Look like
was
the
changing
Hulk.
issue by issue. Was changing.
Yeah,
I
and
think
he's
he
drawn
was
worse in issue number. Yeah, he's drawn worse in issue number 2 than he's in issue number 1.
You can't put a dolphin in any of those covers. You are wrong. You want to know where the dolphin's going? I'm replacing the airplane behind the Hulk with a dolphin.
Yes.
And it's still flying and it's still shooting machine guns. That's where the dolphin's going.
Also, Iron Dolphin.
Yeah, I think the dolphin is flying the gun.
Yeah, you could either replace the plane with him or put him in the cockpit. Those would be your two. The dolphin flying the plane might be cool too.
I can also put Iron Man, the dolphin in Iron Man's place.
Victory.
According to the Marvel database, that cover, that Tales to Astonish cover, is Bill Everett.
That's Bill Everett. Oh, Bill Everett can draw a lot better than that. He must have been.
That explains the gray tones.
Oh yeah, the gray tones. That's the giveaway. You're right. Because he used those in Submariner all the time.
Right. So I'm wondering if that's one of those. I'm wondering if it's one of those rush cover type of things where.
And also, it may have been at his end of his tenure at Marvel, he was not well health-wise.
This is 1966.
Oh yeah. What year did Bill Everett die?
72 or 74.
Was that late? Okay. Yeah, he was not. I know even at the end there at Marvel, he was not. He was drinking a lot too, I think.
Yeah.
The interiors were by Gene Colan, and it was inked by Bill Everett.
Ah, Doctor Strange's Dolphin of Levitation. Hey, Lefty. Yeah, those are some good covers.
Those were good ones. Those were, because it's like, I don't think I've read all those stories in there, and it's like.
But they're all familiar to us.
But we
have
familiar.
some emotional connection to all of them. Let me see if I got one we have no emotional connection to. Let's see. Stop that screen. What else do I have here? All right, here's one we have no emotional connection to. 1998 Biggins. Let's see. Share screen. These are all extra large issues from 1998. X-Babies, Murderama, Batman, 80-page giant #1, and Hulk Submariner 98 #1. I'm sure the chances of us having read these are probably slim.
I read X-Babies.
All right.
Uh,
Murderama, that one
uh,
specifically? Because I've
Murder.
read some X
Yeah,
Babies, but I don't think I've read
I read
Murderama.
only because the, I forget the guy's first name, but his last name is Kirby. He did artwork in
Oh.
it. Batman 80-page giant. I know I bought that, or I got it as a comp.
Yeah,
And
I have no memory of it if I ever even saw it.
the
And
Hulk and
Hulk Submariner
Submariner
Annual,
annual. Yeah, I
no
held the artwork
clue.
for it, but I don't. I know I have the issue. Again,
I
got it
could have
in
worked
comps,
on it. Who knows?
but I have no memory of what it was. Although I'm wondering if that was that Atlantis Rising storyline that was either
That was
starting or
4 years.
ending. I
That
think
was 4 years before that.
it was okay.
Atlantis Attacks.
Yeah, I would.
This is like we've got. I don't think I have no emotional connection to any of these, so it's kind of like,
I
Let's
would.
see. Mind the Comics has an answer for us. Slab Batman, read X Babies, rip Hulk.
Yeah, Slap Batman's easy because I usually like those DC 80-page giants. Even if I haven't read them, I know that the short stories aren't bad, and that we get all the character profiles, which I like. So I don't want to have to slap Batman. I don't want to rip it either. Yeah.
I might rip that Batman. I don't want to read it. I don't want to slab it, so I'm gonna have to rip it.
I'm
I
gonna
would.
rip. I'm gonna rip X Babies, read Hulk Submariner, and slab Hulk Submariner and read the Batman with 80-page giant.
I'm going to slab Hulk and Submariner because the Submariner is appearing in a Marvel movie soon. So I would slab that for investment purposes.
Hey, that's one of the reasons you slab things.
I would read the Batman 80-page giant because it's an 80-page giant. And although Pint Size X Baby has one of my favorite panels, is Wolverine lights up. They're all in the dark, and all of a sudden he lights up, and he's standing there. What looks like is a cigar, but it's a candy bar. He's an X Baby. That's my favorite panel of it. So I would rip it and take out that little panel and hang it up.
Tit Goblin, I like Mojo X-Men stories. I haven't read too many of them.
There are probably 2 good Mojo stories. After that, it gets boring.
I know.
Repetitive.
I think I am going to end up slabbing Batman, even though I didn't want to. Even though it's probably pointless to slab it.
Yeah.
It's kind of pointless to slab. All right, since it's pointless to slab all 3 of these, I'm going to slab Hulk Submariner. I think we all ended up slabbing Hulk Submariner, right?
I think so, yeah.
I think we all,
for all different reasons.
Yeah. and I'm going to tear up Batman just because I like ripping a Batman book. I show my disrespect to Batman. And I guess I'll have to read X Babies. Oof. All right.
There you go.
Is the Hulk blue? I don't think so.
It looks blue.
Is he blue?
It looks blue, but it might just be the coloring that they decided to do with it. Because there is a green character on there, if that's the Hulk. Yeah, because they didn't have different color Hulks back then. So
yeah, I don't think so.
But he wasn't blue in the book, as far as I recall. It might just be a coloring choice.
Yeah, the Hulk is blue. That's the Hulk. And there's another green guy. Why they colored him blue, I have no idea.
I think just to make it look different. I think it was just a coloring choice. I don't think it was in the story.
Maybe they
off model. What was that, Paulo?
Maybe they turned him into an Atlantean, so now he has blue skin.
It could be. Because the Atlanteans maybe they made him breathe underwater.
Yeah, maybe that scene they're underwater and it's
none of us will know. All 3 of us slabbed it. What's the deal with the colored Hulks anyway? I don't read Hulk. Pretty much just so they could make more Hulks. I mean, as far as that the sort of they have story reasons behind it, like the the Red Hulks like represented even more rage or something. They were more savage, but the real reason is so they could make more Hulks. You know.
Yeah, the Red Hulk was turned out to
General
be yes, General Ross. So again, it was just to make something different
Right.
at the time. You know, I
Well,
think Betty's the Red Hulk, Red She-Hulk.
That just reminded me. My friend Rob was like, because in the beginning you didn't know who the Red Hulk was. His identity was a secret. And my friend Rob was like, "It's Thunderbolt Ross. They have him smoking a cigar to bring us back to smoking." And sure enough, it was Thunderbolt Ross.
Yep.
And I was like, and it was sort of an open secret that it was really Thunderbolt and Ross, because everybody knew it as soon as he was smoking a cigar.
Yeah, we were trying to convince people that it was Glenn Talbot back from the dead, but who cares about Glenn Talbot being back from the dead?
Superman was all the colors when I was a kid. Yeah, Superman red, Superman blue. Then they had it in the 90s after the death of Superman.
Oh, there are some.
Good evening, Mind the Comics.
There's some yellow and green versions of early Superman stories in other countries, where sometimes they didn't know what the original color was, so they just took liberties with it.
Isn't it the multiple personalities development? No, because I think they're different people.
Yeah,
the Hulk himself has different Hulks. Like Gray Hulk is a different personality than Green Hulk. Then there's Professor Hulk. So within the Hulk himself, the different colors are different personalities.
Yeah. Also, there was
But then the other color Hulks are outside Bruce Banner.
Yeah, there was a Green Thundra, and Rick Jones got turned into Blue Abomination.
Yeah, so
he called himself A-Bomb.
There's lots of colors.
It's franchising at that point.
Yeah.
You know, it's a way to take. It's also, and again, smart way, but it's a corporate thing. It's a way to take the same Hulk toy, color him a different color, and say he's a different character.
Oh,
but you know,
years ago, I remember talking about Marvel and DC and their push for diversity and to get characters of all, the same character of different genders and races or whatever. And it was all really for marketing. It was and it wasn't for I always said it wasn't for the comics. And I realized this when I saw, there was years ago, there was some fashion designer who came out with a line of Marvel clothes for little girls. And that's when the light went off in my head. And I went, oh, I get it now. The reason they have little girl characters of every comic, of every hero now, is not so that you can sell comics. It's so you can sell backpacks and a clothing line to girls. Know what I saw this week? Do you know what popped up in my Twitter feed this week? She-Hulk makeup. One of the big makeup companies, I can't remember who it was, Sephora or something like that, came out with a palette of She-Hulk licensed, inspired makeup. So it's got all, and it's not for making yourself in the She-Hulk. It's for, doing your own makeup in sort of a She-Hulk style. And it's got all these, and I was like, that is why they made all of these female characters, is so you can now sell makeup to women. I mean, I'm sure they're making a fortune selling makeup to women with Marvel branding on it. Yep. It's like, that's why it wasn't to sell comics to women, though some women I'm buying the comics, I can tell from TikTok. It was to sell makeup and clothes and backpacks.
Yeah, a lot of it is brand dilution, and it
definitely is. For us readers of comics, I would say tons of brand dilution.
They're going after a market that isn't there.
But I think it is because of the Marvel movies. For the comics, it's not there. For the makeup, it is.
Is there?
I have seen enough makeup tutorials because it's one of the things I've watched over the years.
It's a licensing deal, but what that means is that the Marvel brand makeup will be more expensive than regular makeup. And
which is real expensive. But it would you would buy it as a special thing. You wouldn't buy it for every day.
yeah, and maybe use it once and you wouldn't buy it again. So I guess they'll make money because it's a one-time deal.
Yeah. She-Hulk licensed cigarettes for girls. Yes. To women in non-binary money. Yeah. A lot of money. Guess all the big 2 comics is to sell their other stuff. Yeah, that's what the marketers are in charge. When your job at Marvel and DC is to market stuff, you want to sell backpacks. That's how you keep your job going. You don't keep your job going selling comic books.
Sure, backpacks and underoos are easy.
Yeah.
The makeup kit,
that is much harder. We'll see how it does. But like I said, I wouldn't even know how it does. You know, how do I know how makeup? But just the fact that it's showing up in my Twitter feed as an advertisement is like, whoa. Kind of crazy. Well, we should end on that note and let Paulo get to bed. He was tired at the beginning of the show. I took a nap this afternoon, so I was okay.
Yeah, I don't take naps, but I was because we were on Gratu's channel. The 4-color fossils took longer than usual. We even stopped showing books. We were just talking, and till 4 in the morning. All of us went to bed except for Gratu and Charlton 66, and they still stayed on for another 45 minutes.
Wow. All right. Well, everyone have a good night out there.
Bye-bye, everyone.
We'll catch you guys later. And keep reading comics.
There you go.